What is going on, everyone? We've got a couple of people already joined. We are waiting for a couple of special guests to kind of show up a little bit later today. But until now, you've got me. That's about it for now. We've got about 13 minutes here away from the draft. Thanks for joining me today. This is going to be a little bit more interactive than what we are usually used to, so I appreciate all the views. If you are interested in joining the show, I would love to interact with everyone on this one. So if you're interested in joining the show, just let me know. Drop it in the comments here. Give me your email address or wherever you're watching from. Email if you're on X, anything like that, and I can surely send you the invite to bring you onto the show. But for now, it's just me, myself, and I. We're waiting for a couple of other individuals to free up their night for the night. But let's get right on into it. I don't think anything has really changed as far as the draft has gone. And if you're following all of the mock drafts that are out there from anybody on CBS Sports or ESPN, NFL, anything like that, you kind of have the first five figured out for the night already, don't you? So might make the first hour of watching the draft a little bit boring, but just kind of go over my, mock draft top five for the night until we get some people that want to go ahead and interact a little bit. Obviously, we've got Cam Ward being the top person in there. And the one thing that I will, kind of push back on is obviously Cam Ward is leaps and bounds ahead of the other quarterbacks that are in the draft. You've got probably Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, maybe even Milroe that's in there as well. That could be competing for a quarterback friendly position with one of these teams. But realistically, if Tennessee doesn't take him, I can only imagine that, hey, maybe they think that Will Levis is the guy. Maybe they need something a little bit extra there. Maybe they want to go after Travis Hunter, which opens up a whole new can of worms as far as, is he the generational talent that everybody assumes that he is going to be? Just checking out the comments here real quick. Looks like we're good to go. All right. But is that the generational talent? It shouldn't be any big surprise, though, if Tennessee doesn't trade back, which there's really no reason why they should at this point, unless somebody is going to offer them the same thing that Carolina offered the Chicago Bears a couple of years ago in order to get Bryce Young. And look how that's turned out for them over the last couple of years. Tennessee should be picking Cam Ward overall for the Tennessee Titans this year out of Miami. So he's not going that far north. But just to give you a little bit of a background on Cam Ward, in case you're kind of new to college football or even professional football as a whole, Cam Ward, college football player from Miami, obviously the better, or if not the best player in the NFL draft coming up, won the Davey O'Brien Award, won the Manning Award. He was the ACC Player of the Year last year. Unanimous, all consensus, All-American 2024, first team All-American, all that fun stuff. So he obviously has declared for the draft this year, and he is going to be showing up tonight. He'll probably be putting on that first hat. So my first question to everyone here is, how do we feel about Cam Ward going number one? Do we think he's a bust? Do we think he's the guy that's going to bring Tennessee from their 3-14 record from last year? Getting into the Tennessee Titans a little bit before we get into the draft, no real big signings this offseason for Tennessee. I don't know if they're just saving all that money for the Cam Ward signing and the additional bonuses that are going to come along with that, but no real big signings. They did sign offensive lineman Brendan James, Sam Mustipher, maybe a couple other guys in there for some depth pieces to kind of shore up that offensive line. That seemed to be the really big problem last year with Will Levis. I didn't think he played unusually bad last year. He only had 12 games that he played in. In those 12 games, he did throw for 2,091 yards, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Not a great touchdown-interception ratio. Took 41 sacks last year, which was tied for 7th. And if you think about that, him playing 12 games, anyone with 40-plus sacks last year played in all 17 games, with the exception of Will Levis. So we kind of go back to, is it the quarterback's fault? The Chicago Bear thing where they went away from Justin Fields last year and went ahead with Caleb Williams. was it really a Justin Fields problem, or was it an offensive line problem? But when you're looking at Will Levis's stats in general, he's 32nd in QBR last year. He was 31st in passer rating. And the Tennessee Titans are just not a, unfortunately, if you're a Tennessee fan and you've had a rough 5 years, 45 losses in the last 5 years, that's 12th overall in the NFL. They ended the 2024 season on a 6-game losing streak as well. The defense gave up the third most points last year. So getting a guy like Cam Ward, who was 4th overall in the Heisman, like I said before, ACC Player of the Year, Davey O'Brien Manning Award winner, I think that's going to be a no-brainer. I would like to bounce off some ideas from some individuals, though. If you've got any time to share your questions, it is up right now. The live viewer comments will show up. Hopefully that you're on StreamYard. I'm going to check over in a couple other areas to see if we've got some questions popping in. Otherwise, we still have about 7 minutes before the draft actually starts this year. And then we'll have to wait probably the whole 15 minutes for Tennessee to take in any kind of trade offers. I'm sure somebody's going to try to lowball them maybe for a quarterback for Cam Ward. Other teams that would potentially need a quarterback this year, we can go down the list of teams picking early. We've got the Cleveland Browns picking number 2, and Cleveland doesn't really have a quarterback issue in the sense that they're in dire need of a quarterback. Obviously, they still have Deshaun Watson that they're hoping for the 4th or 5th year in a row will end up turning it around. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I'm not real too optimistic about that either. I think he had his best days behind him in Houston, and it was just an overall bad idea by Cleveland to make that kind of a trade. Look where they're at now. Yes, they had a good year 2 years ago. Well, why was that? Well, maybe it's because of Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco had some luck in Cleveland 2 years ago. Almost brought them to one of their first playoff wins in quite a long time. Well, guess who's back after spending 1 year with the Indianapolis Colts in a system that just didn't seem to be paired with him. Jim Irsay seems to be making some questionable moves there as well. Doesn't look like Richardson is going to work out very well in Indianapolis, but nonetheless, Joe Flacco back in Cleveland. And then they also have, oddly enough, they have Kenny Pickett. So they've got 3 quarterbacks there that can really get it done for them. They don't have DTR anymore, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They traded him in the offseason to a more favorable team. I'm sure that he's happy with that. Location being in Philadelphia, they have an excellent chance, I believe, to repeat, at least for the NFC, going to the Super Bowl, maybe not winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, the Cleveland Browns don't seem to have a quarterback issue at this point in time. So I don't think that they would be one of those teams that would end up trading up by any means. The 3rd pick in the draft, we're looking at the New York Giants, and they're kind of the same way. They went on a signing of quarterbacks, signing frenzy. First, I'm not sure what order it was in. I believe it was Jameis Winston first that ended up signing with the Giants. And then later on, they went ahead and they signed Russell Wilson. Not a bad move there either. So, and then they've got Tommy DeVito, of course. Not a real big help probably for them. And they've seen what he can do and what he can't do, probably more importantly. But so New York Giants picking number 3 overall. They don't seem to have a quarterback issue. I don't foresee them making any kind of a move. Otherwise, you got to figure out what you're going to do with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. They become bartering chips in some kind of a trade war, or if there's a team where the quarterback goes down, they might have something there. But otherwise, no equity. There's no reason for them to actually move up in the draft to go ahead and draft Cam Ward. The next team picking number 4 overall, we've got the New England Patriots. And we know about the Patriots. They've got Drake May. They drafted him early last year. So they are not in any kind of a position there where they would want to draft up. They've got their own issues. Brand new head coach with Mike Vrabel. But do not foresee them having any. I think they'll be happy with probably what they'll get here in, I would guess, an offensive lineman at this point to help out Drake May. That was the one big problem with the New England Patriots last year when they started with Jacoby Brissett, who's no longer with the New England Patriots either. But the fact that he was getting killed behind the line, the offensive line wasn't that great. New England has addressed that a little bit in the offseason here. But they definitely should pick up probably some more offensive linemen to keep their franchise quarterback off of his back so that they have some kind of a chance in that AFC East division. After that, you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and love him or hate him, if you think he's a good quarterback or not, I'm kind of on the fence. He's probably, I don't know, a little bit overrated in my book. They've got Trevor Lawrence there in Jacksonville. I don't think they're going to part ways from him. They've got a new coach there as well in Jacksonville. So I don't foresee them actually moving up anytime soon for a quarterback unless they decided to part ways with Trevor Lawrence at some point in time in the next offseason. I would foresee them going somewhere along the routes of, and what's interesting is at that number 5 spot, there was a lot up until this week. Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, was almost a surefire individual that Jacksonville was going to go after and that they were going to pick in this draft. That's what a lot of pundits were saying was going to happen. And now all of a sudden, Mason Graham has fallen off, and you've got this new idea of Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, one of the best running backs, well, the best running back, arguably, in the draft. A lot of pundits have been putting him at number 5 all of a sudden, as if Jacksonville doesn't have a couple of other running backs there, which is really odd to me why they would put him up there. I don't know if I'm sold on that idea yet. When you look at what Jacksonville has done over the last couple of years, their defense has been absolutely atrocious. They didn't go the route that I thought that they were going to last year with Quinyon Mitchell. I thought that they would end up drafting him, and they let him slip through. And their defense did not get any better. Surprise, surprise. But in Jacksonville, obviously, you've got Travis Etienne there. You've got Tank Bigsby, which people seem to be high on last year as well, even when Etienne was hurt with some injury issues. In and out of those games, he played 15 full games, I think, or played in 15 games last year. But running back didn't seem to be a big issue for me, I guess for them anyway. I mean, he's 26 years old. Hell, the guy could still play for 5 more years. You get him healthy. And like I said, you got Tank Bigsby behind him. But that's what a lot of people are saying right now is they are going after a running back at that number 5 spot. So we will have to see what happens there. At number 6, the team that I think that needs the most running back help, and who knows, maybe we'll see the Las Vegas Raiders actually move up in the draft. They could certainly move up to maybe number 4, switch with the New England Patriots. I don't think you're going to get that number 3 pick away from the Giants with Abdul Carter, who will probably be there at that number 3 spot from Penn State. I think that they've got a lot of needs in New York. Obviously, they finished with a very unfavorable record in New York last year for the Giants after making some questionable moves in the last couple of years with quarterback Daniel Jones and running back Saquon Barkley, obviously winning his Super Bowl first year that he's out of New York. With division rival Philadelphia. But the Raiders had the worst run offense in the NFL last year, behind Zamir White and Alexander Mattison. It can be said that, yes, defenses were probably teeing off on the running game, knowing that they had Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew in at their quarterback position and no real threat at wide receiver. If you think about it, their best wide receiver was rookie tight end Brock Bowers. So this year, if I'm the Raiders, I am looking really hard at maybe moving up with all the talk that Jacksonville might take Ashton Jeanty at that number 5 spot. You might want to sneak up ahead of them or see if even Jacksonville wants to trade with you. But that would be potentially the first move that I could see in the night as far as a trade happening is with the Las Vegas Raiders. Not for quarterback Cam Ward, though. At number 7, you've got the New York Jets, and the Jets made, I think, probably the best quarterback move in the offseason this year. Justin Fields, I mentioned him before when we were kind of referencing the Carolina Panthers and Chicago Bears trade. I don't think that was a very good trade. I called it from the start that I felt Bryce Young was undersized. I felt like CJ Stroud had better opportunity or a higher ceiling going number 2. Carolina felt differently, obviously, and I'm not a GM of a football team, so why should they listen to me, right? But Carolina made the move for 3 first-round draft picks and getting Bryce Young. Not going to happen this year, but before I get off into the weeds too far, this was about Justin Fields, and Justin Fields being the best quarterback pickup, I feel, in the offseason with the New York Jets. I thought he got kind of a bad deal with the Chicago Bears, and if the Bears would have been smarter, I feel like they could have traded that number 1 pick that they got from Carolina again and even built on, really building a dynasty in that NFC North. They had and still have quite a few holes in that offense. Obviously, they got some coaches fired last year. They made some moves on the offensive line, especially in the interior. I believe they signed 3 interior offensive linemen in the offseason. But the Bears very well could have hung on to Justin Fields. And you got to think that, 5-12 would have been probably the same record that Justin would have given you, if not better. So, but Justin Fields, he goes off to Pittsburgh, and what happens? He plays pretty decently, but then he gets replaced by Russell Wilson. So I think with the Jets, after their Aaron Rodgers fiasco and not wanting to hold on to Tyrod Taylor and some other older quarterbacks, they go young. They know that they're probably too far back to do any kind of a deal or anything with Tennessee. Maybe they don't want to give up that kind of equity, and they're certainly too far up unless they're willing to trade back for someone like Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. So going out and getting Justin Fields, I think that was a very good quality signing in the offseason by the New York Jets. But as I look over my shoulder here, I see that Commissioner Roger Goodell has finally come out, and the draft is underway. Don't see that the clock is ticking yet. So we're just going to continue with our conversation as far as who might actually trade up for this number 1 spot. Carolina Panthers, they're picking number 8 after the New York Jets. Kind of discuss their situation. They're definitely not going to move up. So we're just going to bypass them altogether to get to the more intriguing one of the night, which I feel if you're looking at trading a number 9 spot to a number 1 spot, well, that's what happened 2 years ago. So we've got that situation again with the New Orleans Saints. Now, news recently has been that Derek Carr might have a shoulder injury problem that could take him out of completely the 2025 season. And that leaves you with Spencer Rattler, 3rd-round draft pick, guy who didn't play very well last year. Or maybe they're hoping that Derek Carr can play with a contingency plan of none other than, dare I say, Aaron Rodgers to New Orleans. Still available. Doesn't sound like the Minnesota Vikings want him. Doesn't sound like the Pittsburgh Steelers want him. I'm going to guess that the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably going to draft a quarterback tonight. But behind Spencer Rattler, who do you got? Jake Haener. Well, that's not a very good quarterback. Ben DiNucci, I can't believe that guy is still in the league. He probably won't make it out of preseason. So it becomes very interesting on what the New Orleans Saints will do with that number 9 pick. I think it kind of depends on who's still there. We mentioned Mason Graham before. If he doesn't go to number 5, if he doesn't go to Jacksonville, which everybody had been saying up until the beginning of this week, if he should fall to number 9, he's definitely a top 10 pick. That might do some wonders for the New Orleans Saints. So first question for the night for everybody, though. Anybody travel to Green Bay? Anybody go to Green Bay for the draft tonight? Anybody live in Green Bay? What would it take for you to go to a draft? Not just in Green Bay. I don't think anybody wants to go to Green Bay at the end of April anyway, but any draft. I know for myself, being a Ravens fan and being one of the few teams in the NFL that has never picked number 1 overall. I think if that would ever happen, and hopefully it doesn't happen in my lifetime, because that just means that we had the worst season that we've ever had, I might go to that draft just to see who we'd pick at number 1. I mean, that could be a franchise-changing event overall. So that would be a fun thing to actually watch and witness. But has anybody gone to Green Bay tonight? If you are, you're probably not watching the show. Or what would it take for you to actually go to a draft? So we've talked about the top 9. Let's get into the Chicago Bears top 10. So at number 10, and it looks like Tennessee is officially on the clock with about 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And this is kind of funny. They're all just kind of sitting there in their offices. Nobody's moving. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's on the phone. Yep, there's a picture of Cam Ward. So general consensus is Cam Ward is going to be the guy. They're not taking any phone calls at this point in time, but I guess we'll see. A team does have 4 minutes left. At number 10, the Chicago Bears, though, the aforementioned Bears. Disappointing season again last year. Like I mentioned before, they did sign a few people for the interior part of their line. So maybe this year they get another weapon. Is that what you think might help with Caleb Williams? A lot of people are not high on Cole Kmet, but I do like Cole Kmet. I thought he was a really good tight end. I think he still is a really good tight end. A lot of people are saying, hey, how about that Tyler Warren kid from Penn State? He's an anomaly of a tight end, best tight end in the draft this year. Yes, better than Colston Loveland from Michigan. I do like Tyler Warren more. It's kind of funny that they're both coming out of the Big Ten, but I've had on my boards Tyler Warren going anywhere from number 8 to number 14. So number 10, that is a very reasonable number to end up in Chicago, especially if I know that Chicago has been rumored to maybe slide up there and grab Ashton Jeanty. I'm not sure why that is. I think people just start rumors to have fun with it. You've got DeAndre Swift back there already. You just didn't utilize him very well. He played really well 2 years ago in Philadelphia. You've got him again this year. I think you've got enough weapons to actually compete in that division. You're really just either not being coached well enough, which is what you'll hear from Chicago Bears fans, or you're going to hear that Caleb Williams is a complete bust, which that's my take. I think he is a complete bust. I don't think he's going to do any better than what he has been in the past. So at number 11, I don't want to go backwards on you. At number 11, we've got the San Francisco 49ers. Surprisingly, after 2 years in a row of being in the NFC Championship game, they find themselves at the bottom of the barrel. So a lot of weird stuff happening in San Francisco. The Deebo Samuels trade. Obviously, you've got Christian McCaffrey there still. That's not an issue. I heard somewhere that Kittle might be holding out if he doesn't get a different contract. So there's another issue that San Francisco might have. But as of right now, for your wide receivers, you've got Brandon Ayuk there, who seemed to fall off a ledge from year to year last year. Juwan Jennings, who stepped up. And then Ricky Pearsall, who they drafted last year with their first pick. So you got a lot of weapons there in San Fran yet, but looking at how they performed last year, they definitely did underperform when it came to the defensive side of the ball. They gave up the fourth most amount of points on defense. Not real great. The offense performed admirably. They actually were the fourth best as far as total yards were concerned, and they were the fourth best passing team in the NFL. They were 14th for points scored, but that defense just couldn't hold up. They were able to get run on pretty well. So I'm looking at them as well for another team that very well could take some defensive players in this draft. Maybe with their first pick, they go out there and grab a corner, grab a linebacker. Depending on how far Jalen Walker falls from Georgia, could be him, could be Mason Graham. But definitely look for San Fran to go defense with their first pick of the draft. Having Brock Purdy there, obviously they're not going to be moving up to that number 1 spot. And I think we're kind of over that anyway at this point, unless somebody is really trying to reach Dallas is picking at 12. They're not picking up for it, or they're not going to draft up for it. You got Miami at 13. They probably should move up for a quarterback, considering that if Tua takes one more hit, they are probably going to be looking for a replacement for him anyway. At number 14, you've got the Indianapolis Colts. They could very well move up. Not a fan of Richardson in Indianapolis there. And after Flacco had a not so great performance there, they went out and got Daniel Jones, as if he is going to be any better. And then they've got somebody named Jason Bean as their third string quarterback right now. But Anthony Richardson right now seems to be the guy that they're going to go with until they really hit a brick wall. I don't know. Maybe they're hoping to get another Manning. Just a thought. That could be a possibility depending on how well Manning plays in college this year. Maybe he'll come out next year. Maybe he'll come out the year after. Maybe he'll just stay in college since they're getting paid millions of dollars to do so anyway now at this point. So you've got Indianapolis at 14. They're not going anywhere. Atlanta Falcons picked up their quarterback last year. Arizona Cardinals are not going to move on from Kyler Murray. The Bengals already have Burrow, so he's good. Seattle just paid a lot of money to Sam Darnold, so they're not going to be looking for a quarterback. You got Baker as in Tampa Bay Bucks. Denver Broncos picked up their dude Bo Nix last year, so they're not going to be moving up. And then you're all the way down to 21, like I said, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that between number one, if you're going to see quarterbacks go off the board tonight, it's going to be number 1, Tennessee, potentially number 9, New Orleans, and then number 21, Pittsburgh Steelers. And then obviously after that, you're getting into the other playoff teams that don't need a quarterback. Just scrolling through. No, not going to happen. So unless you're getting one of these guys that have an early first-round draft pick, they're going to look to scooch up there and get Milroe, get Jackson Dart. Maybe Cleveland does make that move. Maybe the Giants make that move. Maybe the Raiders make that move. I mean, Geno Smith is not a gap stop by any means. Then you've got, again, New Orleans looking for those guys. So it's almost nice that there aren't a lot of quarterback needy teams this year because there just aren't a lot of great quarterbacks. So it's kind of a perfect match in those regards. But it looks like the pick is in. Roger Goodell is up. And it is Cameron Moore. So he is the guy. So first one up on the board, Cameron Moore. I think everybody kind of saw that coming. And I got to tell you, I've got no opinion of Cameron Moore one way or the other. I think he's an okay quarterback. I think he'll do fine in the NFL. Last couple of years, it's been kind of hot and cold with quarterbacks, right? So 2 years ago, didn't care for Bryce Young, never cared for, and we're going back in drafts a little bit when, Zach Wilson was drafted, didn't really care for him. Kenny Pickett was a mid-round first-round pick, didn't really care for him. But some of these guys, like CJ Stroud, you just kind of saw that he had what it took to make it. Last year, I thought Jaden Daniels should have been pick number 1. I thought Chicago really screwed up there. But you got one guy that's getting all the hype. And, Caleb Williams, who couldn't come back in college and had a losing record against ranked opponents and just seemed to crumble under pressure. So didn't really care for that pick. And I got to tell you, I'm really, I'm kind of on the fence with Cam Ward at this point. I think he's a good quarterback. I think there are some things that he does really well. But I don't think he's a superstar quarterback by any means like we've seen in previous years. I don't think he's as good as Jaden Daniels, but I don't think he's as bad as Caleb Williams. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. And it might be a little bit unfortunate for Tennessee that, being a quarterback needy team, unless you wanted to roll the dice with Will Levis again. And again, you've always got that contingency plan of Aaron Rodgers sitting back there just in case your quarterback gets hurt. Let's not pretend that Aaron Rodgers is washed at this point. He is a 4-time MVP. He does have a Super Bowl ring. He's been playing for a long time. Yes. But he does have some gas left in the engine there. So Cam Ward, no shocker there. And we've already covered his accolades with the Tennessee Titans. They've signed some offensive linemen to help him out. I'm a big fan of Sam Mustipher. I thought he was a great pickup for the Ravens a couple of years ago as a backup center, and he did an admirable job there. But there you go. You've got Levis. Looks like he should be looking for another job after his 12-game performance last year. Like I said before, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 41 sacks. You've got other issues besides just having a quarterback who hangs onto the ball. And I got to tell you, watching Will Levis last year, man, it just seemed like sometimes unhook the plow. Like if you're going to take off and run, it's like you're running in quicksand sometimes. You're not going to have that problem with Cam Ward. He is faster, obviously, but with the 32 or being the 32nd quarterback rated at quarterback rating, 31st and passer rating, it's hard not to upgrade from Will Levis. So I can't imagine that Tennessee is going to bounce back after 1 year. Obviously, a franchise that seems to have given up over the last few years with, getting rid of Derrick Henry, getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins, trading away some of your best players. I think that it's not going to be an easy road. And looking at the rest of Tennessee's depth chart, really at this point, is we're looking at Tony Pollard still being there. Wasn't a real big fan of him being your number one guy, but they do have Tajay Spears, and hopefully he can step it up a little bit better than he did last year. Calvin Ridley's still there. Tyler Lockett is the new number 2 guy there, and Tyler Lockett, he's getting up there a little bit in age, but he can still play. Treylon Burks, Van Jefferson. It's a decent surrounding cast of wide receivers. But like I said, it's all going to really be up to him. It's going to be up to Brian Callahan to try to figure that out. If you get worse than 3 wins in a season, I don't know, maybe Brian Callahan isn't the guy, apparently. But relatively easy division to play in as well with the Tennessee Titans. You're fighting with some weaker teams in that division anyway. So they should get more than 3 wins out of there. So here's where we're at right now. We got Jacksonville. The pick is in. And Jacksonville, I'm going to assume that they are going to go with Travis Hunter on this one. He's the second best player on my board. And I think the question is going to be, are they going to allow him to play wide receiver or cornerback? I think it's very admirable for a guy who did as well in both positions as he did last year in college to say that he better play both positions. But let's be realistic. If you want to be one of the better players in the NFL, you better just focus on one. So if it's me, I'm thinking the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have traded up from number 5. Clearly, the Cleveland Browns did not want Travis Hunter, or maybe Travis Hunter made it known that he didn't want to play for Cleveland. But either way, you've got Jacksonville, who was supposed to be picking number 5, is now picking number 2, and there's your first trade of the night. After the first, half an hour of being on the show here, that is not something that I considered as far as an actual option. But look at that. We get our first bit of fun. Jacksonville Jaguars receive a second overall pick, 4th round pick, and 6th round pick this year. The Browns receive a 5th round overall, a 2nd and 4th round pick, or the 5th pick overall, a 2nd and 4th round pick, and a 1st round pick next year. So the Jaguars are almost going all in on this pick. And I mentioned it before, Travis Hunter seen as the generational talent. I hate using that term because you really never know who they say that about everybody every year, right? They said it about Caleb Williams, generational talent. They say it about everyone. They don't say it about the great ones, though, do they? I think we can all agree that Lamar Jackson is a generational talent, being in the league for 7-8 years, winning an MVP in his first full year being a quarterback. Over 40 plus touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year. What he's done putting up numbers, that's fantastic. But so I would call him a generational talent. If it's going to be generational, it can't be every year you got a new guy being a generational talent. But we got Roger Goodell up there with the Jacksonville pick. So it looks like Cleveland has moved down to number 5. And he's talking about the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Good for him. Still waiting for this pick. I am intrigued by what Jacksonville was thinking with this one. We just kind of went over who they had for wide receivers as well on that team. They got rid of, oh boy, I can't even think of his name at this point, but they've got Brian Thomas Jr. there. That would be a great pairing. Brian Thomas Jr. Being their first round draft pick last year. Gabe Davis, Diami Brown that they took from Washington. He was going to be their number 3, and I don't think that guy's getting a fair chance at all, man. He's been bounced around. But this should be very interesting, going to Jacksonville. Colorado to Jacksonville. All right, Walter Payton Award. You know, maybe the NFL draft wouldn't be so long if they could skip some of these things. You know, 10 minutes, pick your guy. Let's go, move it along. Otherwise, we're going to be here till midnight. Let's see if they do pick Travis Hunter.
And with the second pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Travis Hunter. There he is. Jacksonville fans are happy. Travis Hunter. Man, what a relief. Wouldn't that be a relief to you? You're just anticipating for months that you're probably going to end up somewhere cold like New York. You might go to Cleveland. That hasn't done anything. And then all of a sudden, Jacksonville moves up and picks you. Wow. That's pretty amazing. Well, there goes what we talked about earlier with Jacksonville moving, I shouldn't say moving, but staying at 5, and all the pundits saying that they were going to go after Ashton Jeanty. They go after a guy who can play defense and offense. I wonder if they're going to use him on both sides of the ball. Jacksonville needs actually more. I would say their defense is worse off than their offense at this point. When you look at it, Jacksonville defensively, fewest yards allowed. No, they gave up the second most yards allowed in the NFL. They gave up the most passing yards allowed last year. They were 28th for fewest points allowed. So they gave up the 5th most points. Rushing yards allowed. They gave up the 7th most rushing yards allowed. Just a terrible defense overall. I would hope that they're going to put him on a defensive side. But then when you look at their offense, also their total yards, they were 25th in the league. Passing yards, they were 24th in the league. Rushing yards, they were 26th in the league. Points, they were 26th in the league. So this team, this is actually kind of a surprise for Jacksonville. If anything, I would have thought that maybe they would move down and pick up some more draft picks or something, because they've got a lot of holes to fill on this team. So this is kind of a shocker of a trade right away in the draft. Makes it exciting, but you know, if you're a Jacksonville fan, number one, are you excited about it? And number two, what do you want to see him play? What do you want to see Travis Hunter at? Do you want to see him at wide receiver? Do you want to see him at cornerback? I thought they should have went. I mentioned it before in the show. I thought they were going to go Quinyon Mitchell with their first pick last year because their defense was bad. Defense is still bad. You know, Jacksonville just kind of looking at their offseason acquisitions. And people that had left too. They released Evan Engram, who's arguably one of the better tight ends over the last couple of years. He's been Jacksonville, sure. He's been their best pass catcher over the last 3 years, 234 receptions, 2,100 yards. But they signed Eric Murray from Houston as a safety. I mentioned Diami Brown before. I figured he was going to be their wide receiver 3. They got him from Washington. They signed Patrick McCurry from Baltimore here. I can tell you he's kind of a Swiss Army knife of players. He can play tackle. He can play guard. You could probably throw him in at center. Cornerback Jordan Lewis spent 8 years in Dallas. They picked up Robert Hainsey. He's a center. They grabbed him out of Tampa Bay. So, you know, they've been busy in the offseason. They traded Christian Kirk to Houston for a 2026 7th rounder. But, boy, I would have thought for sure. That they were going to go defense. Mason Graham, you know, help out maybe the rest of that defense. He's a 2-time All-American. But yeah, I guess if you want to go wide receiver / cornerback, this is your guy. He can make some plays for sure. I would stick him at cornerback, but I guess we'll see what the Jacksonville Jaguars do. So number 3, apparently the Giants are sticking with their pick at number 3, and they have got their pick is in. It's just a matter of time before Roger Goodell strolls up and waste your time with some more mumbo jumbo before he actually tells you that the number 3 overall pick is most likely going to be Penn State linebacker, outside linebacker, edge, Abdul Carter. That's who I'm going to go with here. I think it's been falling into place, just not the teams. I figured that the Browns would end up taking Travis Hunter. Good move, I guess, for the Browns. If they're looking to re-sign or looking for some more draft picks, they certainly got it. Make their team a little bit better. But Travis Hunter had a great college career. Took a lot of snaps and showed his durability. He's not one of these flashy guys, thin guys that's going to get hurt. He's got some mass to him. So played a lot of snaps, obviously, on the offense, being on the offense and defensive side of the ball. So really cool. I'm glad that being a Ravens fan, I'm glad that we don't have to play against him twice a year because he is one of these guys that could very well be a generational talent coming out of this draft, and maybe the only one. So cool stuff. So a little bit of drama there coming up in the beginning makes it a little bit more of an exciting draft. And the 3rd pick, the Giants, Abdul Carter. There is the official word. So Penn State, this guy was arguably the best defensive player last year. Abdul Carter got themselves something really great there. The Giants finished last season with 3-14. This might be Brian Daboll's hottest seat year ever as their head coach, although their general manager has to play a factor into that as well with the moves that he made from the front office. The Giants tied for 4th with the most losses in the last 5 years. So if you are a Giants fan, ever since that Eli Manning era ended when you were beating Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, that has been long gone. They're tied for 4th with the most losses in 5 years with the Chicago Bears, who are going to be picking here pretty quick. Is Daboll on the hot seat? I think so. Is the GM Joe Schoen on the hot seat? I think so. This is going to have to be a prove-it year for them. Abdul Carter, who kind of looks like Saquon Barkley, but a little bit bigger. Maybe that's what they're hoping to give to the fans here a little bit. Hey, remember this guy? So they signed Russell Wilson and they signed Jameis Winston back in March. They have Tommy DeVito as well. So that's what you get to start with. As far as other signings, veteran Greg Van Roten. He's 35 years old, though. I guess he'll be playing right guard. They signed a lot of older guys. Some depth at wide receiver. You got little Jordan Humphrey from Denver. You got Zach Pascal. On the defensive side of the ball, you got Chauncey Golston, who came over from Dallas. He had 5.5 sacks last year. Cornerback Paulson Abito, 7 games last year in New Orleans. Safety Javon Holland from Miami. He spent the last 4 years there. So, offense is their biggest need, the Giants, at this point in time. But Abdul Carter is the best player on the board. So, obviously the best offensive tackle is Will Campbell at this point. They could have went that route, and you couldn't have blamed them too much just because their offense is almost as bad as their defense is. But when you're looking at the Giants overall from last year in their stats, there's a lot more red on that offensive side of the ball. So I'm hoping that they've got some more answers there to be competitive in a very, very, very tough division. Obviously, you've got the Super Bowl champ Philadelphia Eagles in there. Hey, who else was in that NFC Championship game playing against the Eagles? Got the Washington Commanders in there, and let's not sleep on Dallas, even though they're kind of a playoff one-and-done type of a team. But the Giants were 30th in total yards on offense, 28th in passing yards, 31st in points. So not great on the offensive side of the ball. It didn't get much better on the defensive side. They were the 27th, 27th best. They were ranked 27th against the run last year, which is not great. They were ranked 24th in total yards altogether. They gave up the 21st most points in the NFL. So the only thing that they actually finished in the top 10 in was passing yards, where they were the 8th best team in the NFL when it comes to passing yards. But when everybody can run all over you, they don't have to really pass on you, do they? So going defense, I guess that's the route that they're going to go in New York with Daboll. I hope they have a lot more picks in the draft to where they can make some good decisions, because they are another team that just does not have a very good strength on their team at this point. Offensively at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, they've got a lot of holes. So taking the best player, good for them. And then we move on to the New England Patriots. Patriots last year under 1-year head coach who's no longer there. They went out and got themselves a solid head coach, which they probably should have in the first place with Mike Vrabel. This will be his first year in New England as the head coach. They're coming off of a 4-13 season. And as I mentioned before, the New England Patriots seem to have this fall from grace. They're tied for 7th most losses in the last 5 years. They've got 51 losses in the last 5 years. Hard to believe that with the New England Patriots. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. It seems like Tom Brady could come right back out of retirement and start playing again. But they are tied with Atlanta for the most losses in the last 5 years with 51. So they were busy in the offseason. They went out and they signed Stephon Diggs, who's coming off of an injury. Don't know if we're going to see him really at 100%. I doubt it. Former first-round pick center Garrett Bradbury, who came over from Minnesota. Right guard Morgan Moses, who's 34 years old, coming over from the New York Jets. Defensive end Milton Williams from Philadelphia, nose tackle Kairos Tonga from Arizona, linebacker Harold Landry from Tennessee. He had 9 sacks last year. He had 10.5 sacks in 2023. He had 12 in 2022. So you're getting a productive linebacker there for the New England Patriots. They also picked up linebacker Jack Gibbons from Tennessee and linebacker Robert Spillane from Las Vegas. Cornerback Carlton Davis also came over from Detroit as well. And I got to tell you, this is a team that is truly rebuilding. These guys are all projected really to be starters at this point. Everybody else that the Patriots had on their team that they didn't get rid of is really projected to be just depth chart pieces at this point. They've upgraded their their defense. Now, protecting their young franchise quarterback is probably at the forefront of what they want to do for the foreseeable future. So the offense was worse in passing yards. They were second worst in rushing. They were third worst in points last year. They just were not doing anything. So, if they really wanted to utilize their running game, if they want to utilize that young quarterback that they got, they're going to have to go protection. They're going to have to go offensive tackle. And I think Will Campbell is kind of the unanimous decision at this point. The pick is in. I guess we'll see momentarily. But you've got Ramondre Stevenson, who's coming off of a little bit of an injury. They picked up Antonio Gibson the year before last from Washington. He had a pretty decent year, I guess, as a backup, as good as you could have behind that offensive line. And like I mentioned before, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Keyshawn Boot, Hunter Henry, and we've got some new pieces to the offensive line. So I guess we're just on a wait and see. The Patriots pick is in, and let's see what Robert Kraft and Mike Vrabel looks happy. Let's see what they decided to do with the number 4 pick, with left tackle being the obvious choice here. Like I said, though, they could use a lot more. The wide receivers that I listed off, those are definitely questionable. Defensive tackle, defensive edge, outside linebacker, they could use pretty much all of it at this point. But they did do a pretty decent job of picking up some good free agents and spending some of that salary cap space that they had along the way. So obviously in this division with the New England Patriots, you've got the New York Jets, you got the Miami Dolphins, you got the Buffalo Bills, and their only real competition is going to be Buffalo. And there's the pick, and it is Will Campbell. So pretty obvious. I'm sure Drake May is happy at home, knowing that he's probably had nightmares over the last couple of months by how many times he got hit from behind. But Will Campbell, very, very sturdy left tackle. He started all 39 games from LSU in his 3 years there. Arguably best offensive lineman in the draft.
Every single time. Okay. And after the camp, Ed Orgeron, who was the head coach at LSU at that time, said, I was going to offer you a scholarship if you could have just won a couple of those reps. Will said he cried all the way back.
Guys are pretty quiet out there, looking for some questions, looking for some banter, looking for anybody that really wants to join, and we can talk back and forth. We can have a chit-chat so you just don't have to listen to me talking the whole time. How about that? But Will Campbell, big dude, 6'6", 320 pounds, won the Jacob blocking trophy this year. Again, a consensus All-American, 2-time first-team All-American. Should be a staple on that New England Patriots offensive line for years to come.
So a day before my birthday, they were at our home camp, and it burst into flames while they were sleeping. He was the only one that didn't end up making it out alive. He's at 17 at the time that he passed. As a family, we started a foundation in his name, and we've been able to really do some amazing things, around our community, just to help out anybody we can, whether that's big or small, bring sunshine to somebody's day.
Starting to wonder if my mic is on. You guys can hear me, right? All right, so here's the tricky pick. We got Cleveland, who moved back to number 5 due to the trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we talked a little bit about Cleveland and the quarterbacks that they've got there right now with Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and Deshaun Watson. Could they use a running back? I'm thinking Ashton Janty is probably on their radar. They do have Jerome Ford. He had a pretty decent year as a backup to Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb should be back, you would think. Are they counting on Nick Chubb to be back? They've got Pierre Strong Jr. I guess looking at my big board here on who is the next highest rated individual here. Let me update this real quick. We got Will Campbell going number 4, the number 5 pick. Highest pick that I've got at this point, or my best player on the board, is Ashton Janty. I've had him going anywhere as high as 5, but as low as 9. I don't think he gets out of that range between 5 and 9, especially with the Raiders picking next at number 6. And I think if Cleveland really wanted to stick it to the Raiders for whatever reason, they're not in the same division or anything, but they definitely could do that. Otherwise, if they think that they've got the right guys at running back with Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb, next best player that I've got on the board at that point in time, we'd be going to offensive line again. Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas would be my next best player on the board, followed closely by Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia. That might be something that they decide to move to. Otherwise, you've got Armand Membo, another offensive tackle, or Tyler Warren, who they're definitely not going to go with. As long as they've got Njoku there, you can pretty much scratch him off the list. But those would be my first three guys that I would think. You're looking at Ashton Janty, Calvin Banks, Armand Membo. So definitely offense for the Cleveland Browns. As we look at the Browns and how they did last year, we might have covered this before they were going to pick. Offense was definitely the sore spot. If you're going to divide it between offense and defense here, they ranked 28th in total yards, 29th in rushing yards, 32nd in points, just could not score. So they need somebody that can score or somebody that can free up a guy that can score. Their defense, not quite as bad. They gave up the sixth most amount of points in the NFL. They were 19th as far as yards given up in the season. So definitely not the worst, but not great. They were 12th against the pass, 21st against the run. And they decided to go with Mason Graham at number 5. And he was another guy that we had talked about briefly, Mason Graham at number 5, that he was going to go number 5 pretty much all week until the beginning of this week. Mason Graham, wow. Not too bad. I had him as high as number 5, but I had him as low as number 13. So a little bit bigger of a window there, which is why I had Calvin Banks ranked a little bit better. And I had Ashton ranked a little bit better. But number 5, Mason Graham. Going defense. And I guess that doesn't really surprise me if you think about it. Actually, it does surprise me because their offense is so bad. We just covered it. Their defense, they've got Myles Garrett. Maybe they're in win-now mode on the defensive side of the ball. They still got to figure out the offensive side, but their defensive line wasn't a real big sore spot for me unless they're thinking, hey, we got to get after Lamar twice a year. We got to stop Derrick Henry. We got to get after Joe Burrow. Whatever Pittsburgh is going to do at quarterback and running back, if they're going to stick with Warren in the backfield. But Mason Graham, best defensive player in the draft. He's going to Cleveland. We'll see how he does there. And just like that, the Raiders are already ready to go. That to me screams Ashton Janty all over the place. I'll bet they're just thrilled that Cleveland did not pick Ashton Janty. I'm going to just mark this one off right now. This guy is going to the Raiders. But Mason Graham from Michigan, obviously, he's a 2-time All-American, including a unanimous honors in 2024. In 2023, he was part of the national championship team. He was named the defensive MVP, 6'3", 300 pounds. He's NFL ready right now, and he will get after it. So that's a little bit of a scary situation if you are a division rival of the Cleveland Browns. Looks like they're bulking up the defense, but not to worry because their offense is still going to suck. Yep. Big dude, fast, powerful. Can't go wrong with a defensive tackle like that. And as we move on, we will be looking at Ashton Janty. I'm sure it's going to be that. They could go offensive line. That wouldn't surprise me either. If you want to try to protect the runners that you got, you want to try to protect Geno Smith. You want to try to protect your 77-year-old or 73-year-old oldest head coach in the NFL, Pete Carroll.
Thanks so much, Reese. Here with Kim and Alan. Kim, you said this is so crazy. How would you describe this moment for your family?
It's just an amazing, unbelievable moment, and we're just so proud and excited for what Mason's been able to do.
Alan, whenever he held up the jersey with your last name on it, you both smiled so big. What is it like seeing this happen?
It's been a dream of his since all my life, and he finally made it, so we're so proud of him.
Why is this emotional?
Love it when the announcers ask, why is this emotional? Why is this emotional for you? Why are you crying? Your son got drafted to the NFL. Oh my God. So looking at Cleveland and the other additions that they made this year, obviously they signed Myles Garrett back in March when he said, hey, he wants to play for a winner. It's not about the money. And then they gave him more money and he resigned. I mentioned it before. They traded Dorian Thompson-Robinson for a 2025 fifth-round pick this year to Philadelphia for Kenny Pickett. So they traded him away. They signed linebackers Jerome Baker and Devin Bush for more depth. Now, they're building their defense. Yeah, everybody's just ready for Ashton Jeanty. So Ashton Jeanty, officially a Raider at this point. And I got to tell you, this kid, he's small. He's only 5'8", but he looks like, I mean, if you've seen the guy, he is a bowling ball. He's so strong. He reminds me of like a Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram was about the same size, but obviously bigger than a Mark Ingram. Or how about a smaller version or a mini version of like a Derrick Henry? Could possibly be the best running back that the Raiders have had since Bo Jackson. How about that? Reminds me of Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was super strong too, but you've got Ashton Jeanty there now from Boise State. Won the Maxwell Award, the Doak Walker Award. He was a runner-up for the Heisman last year. And like I said, he's a beast. 5'8", 211 pounds. He's going to be stiff-arming people. He's going to be breaking through tackles. He's going to be, at 5'10", he can squeeze through those holes. Powerful legs. Good runner. Low center of gravity. Great balance. Great pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a good start. He's going to be one of the only weapons that they got on that team. Besides Brock Bowers, because their wide receivers are not great. And the quarterback, Geno Smith, I want you to think about this, Geno Smith. So if you take Geno Smith out of the equation as far as Seattle goes, right, you had Jackson Smith and Jigba. You had DK Metcalf. You had Tyler Lockett. Those are your three wide receivers. And then you've got Kenneth Walker in the backfield. And you can't even make the playoffs with that offense. The fact that Geno Smith, I hope Las Vegas does not think that he is going to be some kind of a savior for Las Vegas, because he is not going to be much better than what they had last year with Gardner Minshew. He's not going to be much better than what they had with Aiden O'Connell. I wouldn't doubt that they bring in Aaron Rodgers at some point. I mean, he's always an option there too. I'm going to throw him in there because if Geno Smith can't do much with those weapons in Seattle, what do you think he is going to do in Las Vegas when his wide receivers are Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, and Kyle Phillips? That's not even close to what he had in Seattle. You really think that he's going to be some kind of magic worker there? So I'm happy for Las Vegas. They got a running back. They needed that after last year with I almost forgot his name, Zamir White and Alexander Madison, who's not on the team anymore. But they did go off in the offseason and they signed Raheem Mostert. And you had to figure that wasn't going to be, that's not going to be the go-to, right? Raheem Mostert is a backup at best. He's a change of pace guy, and his change of pace is slow. So that's the pace that he's going to have in there. Raheem Mostert playing in Miami last year, really kind of backing up Devon Achane over there. Played in 13 games, 85 carries, 278 yards, only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. Not starting running back material. He will obviously go to RB number 2. And that's what you're looking at with the offense for Las Vegas. And at number 7, we've got the Jets. Have their pick already ready. And it doesn't look like they're going to call that anytime soon because they are going to commercial at this point. So at number 7, in my last draft. I have them taking offensive tackle Armand Membo. I think he's still the best player on the board at this point. Could be arguable with Tyler Warren. I'm going to make the same argument for Tyler Conklin, though. I don't think Conklin is a bad tight end. I don't think you're going to gain much with a Tyler Warren at this point. Tyler Warren, obviously the best tight end coming out of the draft, but I just don't see him being the guy that they're going to go with. Or they could make a move on defense and go with Jalen Walker out of Georgia. I would say that those three guys are probably, along with Kelvin Banks, another offensive lineman. I'm going to, the Jets need offense. They just went out and signed Justin Fields. Well, they didn't just do it, but they went out and signed Justin Fields in the offseason. So you want to protect that young quarterback. As I mentioned before, Justin Fields, he's only 26 years old. He could be your guy for the next 10 years if you really want him to. Drafting an offensive lineman, there's rumors out there right now. Breece Hall wants to get traded. Doesn't want to play for the Jets anymore. I don't understand that. I don't understand why the Jets would even float that. If you think about the situation, Breece Hall, he hurts his knee. He comes back from knee injury, and all of a sudden it's, poo-poo on Breece Hall. They had a bad situation last year. I mean, Braylon Allen's good, right? You could probably start him on your team, but why not have this kind of a thing like the Detroit Lions have with Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, where you got two good running backs? I think Breece Hall and Braylon Allen could probably do that same thing. But the offensive line needs to get better, obviously, for the New York Jets. In the offseason, they released, obviously, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, so they didn't have those two. And they also released C.J. Mosley, so there's a piece of their linebacker crew that's not there. But they signed Justin Fields, right? He was 18th in passer rating, 19th in pass completing. He had 5 touchdowns and only 1 interception in the games that he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. They also went out and signed right tackle Chuck Okafor from New England. They signed some wide receiver depth with Tyler Johnson, Josh Reynolds, defensive tackle Derek Nottie, played 7 years in Kansas City. They picked up safety Andre Sisco, spent 4 years with Jacksonville, cornerback Brandon Stevens from Baltimore, who played 4 years there. So they picked up some really good pieces in the offseason. But again, I think I am going to go offensive line here. Probably Armand Membo from Mississippi. Big guy, 6'3", 330 pounds. Primarily plays right tackle, and that is where they lost Morgan Moses from last year. Decided not to go back with him, but he'll take over for Morgan Moses and can bookcase Olu Fashanu since they just drafted him in the first round. I know it's not sexy. The Jets drafted an offensive tackle last year. They drafted another offensive tackle this year. It's not a sexy move to take, but games are won in the trenches, my friends. So that would be the best player, I think, for them to go out and get at this point in time.
The Jets have decided who they think the best player for them is at the moment as we go to the podium.
All right, going to the podium. New York Jets. The offense was obviously a little bit worse than their defense. In their defense, they allowed the third fewest yards allowed in games last year and the fourth fewest passing yards. And yes, they did just pick Armand Membo. He is the guy, offensive tackle from Missouri. Good pick. He was my best pick on the board. Like I said, he can book in with Olu Fashanu. Not a sexy pick, but boy, that offense is going to get better. I hope Breece Hall is happy with that. Maybe that will smooth over some things there. Allowed only 1 sack in the last 391 pass blocks in 2024. He's fast, he's strong, he's durable, he can play. I think these first 7 picks were pretty straightforward with who is going to take who. Taking the best players on the board. The only surprise there was obviously when Jacksonville traded up with the Browns, but even then, he had the best player on the board. You go up and get Travis Hunter. Cleveland Browns go ahead and take Mason Graham. best player on the board there. So now who are we looking at? We've got the Carolina Panthers, who apparently have wasted no time in getting their pick in. Carolina Panthers, if they take the best person on the board here, I'm going to go with linebacker Jalen Walker. It is definitely a need for them to get some defense. They need offense and defense. But when you're looking at the Carolina Panthers, they finished dead last in yards allowed. They finished last in rushing yards allowed. They finished last in points allowed on the defensive side. So if you're not going defense on this one, you need to have your head examined. Because there's nothing worse that you could possibly do. Carolina finishing 5-12 last year. Dave Canales' first year with the team. Overall, the most disappointing team in the last 5 years with 60 losses over the last 5. Sorry if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, but they have been the worst team in the last half a decade. I mentioned they finished dead last in total yards allowed, rushing yards, points allowed, all that fun stuff. They were 30th in pass yards allowed, or passing yards on the offense. They were 29th in total yards. So their offense, it's not like their defense is losing them games. Their offense can't win them any games either. They signed defensive lineman Trushawn Wharton. He played 5 years in Kansas City. Defensive tackle Bobby Brown. Not that Bobby Brown, but a different Bobby Brown. 4 years with the LA Rams. Linebacker Christian Roseboom played 4 years with the Rams. They signed him. Safety Trevon Mooring, 4 years with the Vegas Raiders. And they also signed Rico Dowdle as a backup piece or an insurance piece as a running back. He spent the last 4 years in Dallas. So they went out there. They addressed the defense actually quite a bit. Some of their better, 4 of their 5 acquisitions that I would say their 5 best acquisitions were all defense. I would think that they're going to continue with that. They need almost everything, but like I said, Jalen Walker is the best player on the board right now. They could go tight end Tyler Warren. Yes, also from Penn State. He's 6'6", 260 pounds. Nittany Lion to a Panther. I could see that happening. But I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here. It's been a relatively fun draft so far.
If I could choose, I would stay with you. Always. Next Thursday, we celebrate the life of Captain Robert Wade Nash. What a hero.
Let's see what we got.
I blame him. He gave his life so I could live. I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do with that.
Can his world move on?
He's not supposed to be dead. He just left.
An emotional all-new 911. New episodes.
If you are a Carolina Panthers fan, who are you looking for in this spot? Like I said, I think the best 2 positions right now, you could go tight end.
But there is another choice. Not stopping until you have everything.
You definitely need some receiving weapons. I mean, you've got Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, and Jalen Coker are your top 3. But I don't think Tommy Tremble is anywhere near what you're going to look for or what you'd want to have as your starting tight end. So best player on my board, like I said, that's Jalen Walker. I had him anywhere from number 8 to number 11. So a very small window. He will go fast. If Carolina does not take him here, I don't think the Saints would take him at 9, but at 10, I could see the Bears, or at 11, I could definitely see San Fran. I don't think he makes it out of the top 11. Outside of that, top 3 players on the board. 3rd best player that I have left is offensive lineman Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. So him, Tyler Warren, and Jalen Walker.
$659 per month.
We're just getting started for Green Bay. Night 2 of the NFL draft continues tomorrow night.
All right. We're about an hour into this whole broadcast here, so if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them right down below. Here comes Roger Goodell with the pick from the Carolina Panthers. And let's see if we are right again. Oh, boy. They went wide receiver. Teteroa McMillan. You know, we just covered what their weapons were, talking about their wide receivers not being good. Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, and Jalen Coker. But Tommy Tremble at tight end, I guess he's taking a sigh of relief right now. Teteroa McMillan, that's interesting. That is an interesting pick. I guess this is going to be a prove it or lose it year for Bryce Young. They're going offense. Let's see where I had Teteroa. I know I had him going somewhere between, what was it? Oh, really, 11 or 12. And he just went number 8. So I had him either San Fran or Dallas. I didn't think Dallas was going to let him get past them at all. So that's an interesting pick. I don't know if anybody saw that one coming. Teteroa McMillan. Interesting.
My message to future generations of Polynesian football players was just to stay humble, keep your head down, trust the process, and always put down first.
So he was the Polynesian College Football Player of the Year last year, consensus All-American last year, first team All Big 12 last year. Big kid, 6'4", should be a big target. I don't know how you're going to miss that, Bryce Young, but I have a feeling you'll figure out different ways to do that. 6'4", 219 pounds. Good hands, good speed, good route running. I had him as the wide receiver 1 on the board, best wide receiver, right behind or right in front of Matthew Golden from Texas. But this is really early. I did not think that we were going to see a wide receiver chosen before number 11. He'll be an end zone threat if Carolina can ever find the red zone next year. That'll be good for them. And we've got number 9, the Saints are on the clock, and this should be another interesting one with the New Orleans Saints. Picking at number 9. New Orleans finished 5-12 last year. They have a new head coach in Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for your Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles last year. New Orleans finished 31st in rushing yards allowed, 30th in total yards allowed, but also only 24th in points. They scored 23rd in passing yards. They traded a 2026 7th rounder to New England for D-tackle Devon Godchaux. That last name fits in very well in New Orleans. They signed safety Justin Reed, played the last 3 years in Kansas City, and they got a bunch of depth pieces. So they didn't do a whole lot of signings and tradings and all that kind of stuff. But as we mentioned before, Derek Carr might not be playing in 2025, which makes this pick a really interesting one. It could be an easy one for them. If they're worried about that, they could go with Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, going from black and gold to black and gold. But I guess we'll see. You know, you've got Kellen Moore in there. Like I said, offensive coordinator. Every brand new head coach wants their quarterback. This could be a pick that he makes. Otherwise, you're going to have to address that quarterback a little bit later in the draft. Maybe they're one of the teams that moves up if they see that Milroe or maybe Jackson Dart or somebody else is going to be available. But I can't imagine that they are going to go ahead and stick with Spencer Rattler at this point. Very interesting pick. Their team is getting a little bit older. Alvin Kamara is getting up there a little bit. He was banged up last year as well. He will be 30 this summer. Only played in 14 games last year. 228 carries. He's still got some juice in the tank, but for how much longer? And then behind him, obviously, they've got Kendre Miller, who I think they're probably hoping is going to take over for that spot. The weapons that they've got are really appeasing to any quarterback going down there. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, all played really well last year. Juwan Johnson is not a bad tight end as well. They've got some good young offensive linemen in there. Talise Fuaga is at left tackle. They put Trevor Penning back in at right tackle last year after I can't remember who, somebody else had gotten injured. Otherwise, Trevor Penning was supposed to be the backup. But the Saints are in. Their pick is in, apparently. I don't think that they're going to go Tyler Warren. I don't know. Jalen Walker is the best guy on the board. And they go Calvin Banks Jr., who I mentioned before as far as an offensive lineman. Calvin Banks Jr., was he the best offensive lineman that I had ranked at this point? Yes, he was, right after Armand Membo. So he went number 7, and then McMillan went 8. And we've got Calvin Banks Jr. from Texas going at number 9. And I had him actually really anywhere from, number 6. He had quite a span, anywhere from number 6 to number 15, really. So he had a little bit bigger of a span. So I guess number 9 is kind of right in the middle there. Not a gigantic shocker. Predominantly a left tackle, but I'm sure that they can move him over to right tackle. Like I said, they just signed a left tackle in Talise Fuaga. They're going to have to move one of those guys over somewhere. I'm going to guess probably right tackle at this point. But you got offensive-minded head coach in there now. He's going to build up his offense. Calvin Banks Jr. did a fantastic job last year, won the Outland Trophy, the Lombardi Award, the Jacobs Blocking Trophy. He was a unanimous All-American. 2 years ago, he was a second-team All-American, first-team All-SEC, first-team All-Big 12. So consistently playing well over the last couple of years. About 6'5", 315 pounds, big kid, fast kid. But yeah, him playing at left tackle though, that's the one kind of concern there is they didn't really need a left tackle, so they're moving somebody around. And we've got the Bears are up on the board next with the number 10 pick. They too have a brand new head coach in Ben Johnson from Detroit last year. So that'll be a fun thing to watch. The Bears finished 5-12. Ben Johnson being with the Lions last year, being in the same division, that should be interesting. And this makes the 6th team with a new head coach picking in the top 10. Honestly, the Bears' offense was terrible. It was the worst. They were the worst in total yards. They were the second worst in passing yards. They were 28th in points scored. Defensively, they gave up the 5th most rushing yards, the 6th most total yards. So they weren't much better on the defensive side of the ball. They made some trades over the offseason. They traded a 2026 4th-round pick for left guard Joe Thuney, who's pretty much a household name. He spent 4 years in Kansas City. They traded a 2025 6th-rounder for right guard Jonah Jackson from the Rams. They signed wide receiver Olamide Zacharias from Washington. Center Drew Dahlman, who spent the last 4 years in Atlanta. Defensive end Grady Jarrett. He spent 10 years in Atlanta. Defensive end Odeying Bingo. Spent 4 years in Indy. You know who I'm talking about. And former Raven wide receivers, Miles Boykin and Devin Duvernay for depth as far as the wide receivers. So they were actually one of the busier teams in the offseason. They added a lot of O-line. So, you know what? I'm sure this pick doesn't really concern them that much, that an offensive line was taken off the board. I think they go defense, and Jalen Walker from Georgia. I've said his name 3 times now. He's not getting by the Bears. Do you know why? It's fitting because he did win the Butkus Award this last year. He's a first-team All-American, 6'1", 245 pounds. I can't imagine they're not going to go with Jalen Walker at this point, especially after the guy won the Butkus Award. I mean, come on. If they go tight end here, I am yeah. They've got some really poor management on that team if they go tight end. Cole Kmet was not a bad tight end last year. He's played in 17 games the last 4 years. Durable tight end. 47 receptions last year, which was way down from when Justin Fields was there in 2023. He had 73 receptions. He dropped from 700 yards to under 500 yards. But still a red zone threat over the last 3 years. He's caught 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, Cole Kmet. So can't imagine that they're going to go after a tight end right here. Cole Kmet's 26 years old. He's still young. I should say 26 years young. But, yeah, I think defense on this one.
The Chicago Bears selected one of Stephen Michael's teammates and closest friends, Walter Payton, running back, Jackson State.
So the Bears pick is in, and it is
17,000 yards and 110 touchdowns over 13 seasons, all with the Chicago Bears.
It is being dragged on by Commissioner Goodell. And I had, again, I had Jalen Walker at 8. I had Jalen Walker at 10. I had Jalen Walker at 11. This is the 10th pick right here, so it would be fitting for him to go.
So with the 10th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Colston Loveland.
Oh, boy, they went tight end. I tell you what, they went tight end, and they didn't even go with the best tight end on the board. You got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding. Wow. How do you do that? Colston Loveland from Michigan. Oh, my God. Boy, I didn't see many mock drafts out there that had Colston Loveland going this far or going this early. There weren't too many. I had him anywhere from 14 to 22. And he just got picked up at 10. Tyler Warren is still on the board from Penn State. Did they not know that he was on the board yet? Man, I had him going anywhere between 7 and 14. That's a terrible pick. I'll say that's the first bad pick of the draft. Leave it to the Bears 2 years in a row. Good Lord. Leave it to the Bears. All right, well, good job, Chicago. I hope you enjoy finishing last in your division again this year. Obviously, not everything is won in the draft, but you can definitely lose in the draft. And they did not win on this pick. They needed offense, maybe a little bit more than defense. I mean, they're equally bad on both sides of the ball, but wow. All right. Well, coming up next, we got the San Francisco 49ers. They have a need probably more for defense rather than offense. They performed better last year on offense, better than defense. So San Fran finished 6-11, which was surprisingly last in the NFC West. They still have Kyle Shanahan as their head coach. They had a solid offense last year. They finished 4th in total yards, 4th in passing, 12th in rushing, 14th in points scored. The defense gave up the 4th most points, though, and they were 18th versus the run. So not a great outing by the San Francisco 49ers last year. In the offseason, they didn't make a whole lot of moves either. So they signed linebacker Luke Gifford, who spent the last 2 years at Tennessee with the Titans. And they signed cornerback Trey Brown, who spent the last 4 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks. And then anything else that they did was really just for some depth pieces. Obviously, they lost Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders. And the funny thing is, in my notes, I said they could go Jalen Walker, or they could go Tatario McMillan. Well, McMillan is gone. So while the offense is good, this just fell right in San Francisco's lap to bulk up their defense. This is actually kind of crazy. I still can't believe that the Chicago Bears passed up on somebody that just won the Butkus Award, and your defense was not great last year. I get it. Your offense needs a little bit more help than your defense did, but wow, not even the best tight end on the board. So, yep, looking at the San Francisco's defense, obviously they still have they still have Nick Bosa. They still got Fred Warner. They still have a pretty formidable defense. But let's face it, those guys aren't getting any younger either.
It ain't my dad's razor, Dad. Hey, watch it. It's from Gillette Labs. This green bar releases trapped hairs from my face. Game changer. Well, it flex this contours to.
And they're not getting any cheaper. So they're going to have to replace some of these guys before they can give Brock Purdy his gigantic contract. Well, this is shaping up really well for San Francisco at this point. If they don't take Jalen Walker, I don't know, man. At number 11, I don't know where he goes. I don't know. I'll take him. I'll take him in Baltimore. That's for sure. He can fall all the way down to 27. That would be just fine with me. But I did not. Most mock drafts that I saw were at number 8, actually, to Carolina. So the fact that it's number 11 and he's still there, it almost reminds me of Dallas Turner situation from last year, where you expected the Atlanta Falcons to take him, Dallas Turner, whatever pick they had, 6, 8, was in about the same spot, and just fell, and then the Vikings traded up to snag him. So kind of a weird situation with the linebackers over the last couple of years here. Jalen Walker, best linebacker in the draft. Get that we're still only on number 11. There's a lot of other positions out there, but we've seen a couple of offensive linemen go. We've seen a couple of wide receivers go, if you want to consider Travis Hunter a wide receiver. Obviously, Abdul Carter, linebacker edge type of a situation there, depending on where they're going to line him up. So I guess Jalen Walker's the second best linebacker coming out of the draft. So the pick is in. We just got to wait for them to come back. But my money, if I'm a bet man, is Jalen Walker at this point. I don't see how he falls any further. And if he does fall, what does Dallas do? Dallas now has Jalen Walker in their laps then. Or otherwise, I had them getting Tatario McMillan. So that kind of blew up in their face. They could stretch. They could reach a little bit for Matthew Golden. Would be the next best wide receiver on the board. Otherwise, they don't really need a tight end. Tyler Warren is the tight end, best tight end on the board. He should have went by now. Otherwise, I could go edge with Michael Williams. First time that we've said his name tonight.
Hello from the United States Forces Japan. I'm Sergeant Mitchell Johnson. I'm here with service members from the United States Army, Marine Corps, and Navy. We're proud to announce that this year we're celebrating our 250th anniversary. We're grateful for the opportunity to partner with the NFL Salute to Service and the USO.
Walter Nolan is still on the board. I didn't have him going any earlier than 11, but that could be a possibility there. Walter Nolan from Mississippi.
Thank you to our men and women who serve in the United
Anyone else thinking that the San Francisco 49ers was just a fluke last year? I still can't believe that they finished fourth in that division. Rams, Seahawks, and Cardinals. San Fran, what are we doing?
San Francisco 49ers select Michael Williams.
Michael Williams. All right. So a name that I just brought up, Michael Williams, if they were thinking about going edge and maybe not so much Jalen Walker, but Michael Williams. I had him as early, as I said before, as early as number 11. I think it's maybe a little bit of a stretch for Michael Williams. Coming out of Georgia is not real refined, but he's fast. Boy, there we go. There's another.
This guy can play on the edge, but he can also play down on the tackle. You're going to see him right here, work his hands and feet, get a sack. You know, in the Texas game, which is very disruptive. He could be an inside rusher if he needs to be, which I think is very.
Michael Williams from Georgia. So good pick coming off of the edge as a defensive end, outside linebacker, wherever you're going to put him. 6'5", 260 pounds, coming from Georgia, where he spent the last couple of years there. He CFP national champion in 2022, two-time second team All SEC 23-24. So a few injury issues that he had in college as well probably pushed him out of the top 10. But Michael Williams is one guy that you got wishful thinking. But I saw drafts where he went anywhere from 9 to 27. So kind of all over the board. This might be a little early for Michael Williams, but still I think it's still a pretty solid pick. I love that 11 to 27. 27 is where the Ravens were. I would have scooped him up at 27 for sure. So I guess I was kind of hoping on him to fall a little bit. In my last draft, I had him at number 13, so not that far off. And now we're on to the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, Jerry Jones already has his pick in, probably before he hits dementia. You wanted to make sure you got his pick in real quick. Dallas Cowboys, another team with a brand new head coach after finishing 7-10 last year. They got their former offensive coordinator, and Brian Schottenheimer.
The Dallas Cowboys select Tyler Booker, guard.
Oof. All right. Dallas Cowboys went interior offensive line, which was not really what I thought that they were going to do. For all the Dak haters out there, it wasn't the offense that was worse for the boys last year. It was their defense that gave up the second most points in the league, fourth most rushing yards, fifth most total yards. They were 27th in rushing yards. They traded a 2025 draft pick this year, a fifth rounder, for Joe Milton. And for New England's seventh rounder this year as well. In the offseason, they signed halfback Javonte Williams from Denver, where he spent the last 4 years. They signed offensive guard Robert Jones, who spent the last 4 years in Miami. Defensive end Dante Fowler Jr., who was with Washington last year. He was in Dallas before that in 22 and 23. But they also signed linebacker Kenneth Murray Jr. He spent the last year in Tennessee, and then linebacker Jack Sandberg, who is in Chicago for the last 3 years. So they really built up the defense. I guess they felt like offensive line was the way to go. So they went with offensive guard Tyler Booker from Alabama with the number 12 pick. And maybe Tet McMillan was their first pick, and they decided, you know what, we need some offensive linemen instead here. So they went with Booker. And I got to tell you, I think it's a little early for Booker. There's probably only one mock draft that I saw that had him going 12 or earlier, and that was Dan Parr from NFL.com, but that was about it. I'm not a fan of Tyler Booker. Arguable where he was going to go. I had him probably going somewhere around 22, 23-ish at the earliest. In my last couple of mock drafts, it was maybe 25, going to the Houston Texans where they need some interior line help as well. But they decided Tyler Booker was going to be the guy. They're happy about it in the front office, which is odd. But I'm happy with that, just so my team doesn't take him. But you got Miami on the board now. Tyler Booker, did not see that one coming. That one's almost, I think, as bad as what the Bears just did with their tight end pick.
All right, here with William and Tashana, who Desmond was just referencing. Start with you, William. What's it like to watch your
But it certainly looks like he'll fit in with the Dallas Cowboys. He's a big guy. He's 6'4", 6'5" 325 pounds. It's not that he's a bad player. He's a first-team All-American last year. He's a two-time first-team All-SEC the last 2 years. So now he's on the Dallas Cowboys. Big, strong guy.
We're finally here. He's a Dallas Cowboy. We're so excited, so proud of him.
The coolest part was when he was still on the phone. He was screaming, "I'm a Cowboy!"
Started as a freshman, so you know the kid's got talent.
Here from Green Bay as round 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft continues. The emotions of these
Doesn't allow a whole lot of sacks, which is something that Dallas Cowboy fans have been begging for years, for Dak to not take as many hits. They drafted Tyler Guyton last year in the first round, so it looks like they are really trying to build up that offensive line. They picked him with the 29th overall pick. And just looking at who they've got right now, I mean, they've got a younger offensive line. I was thinking they had a young left guard already, and they do. They drafted Tyler Smith. This is the third year in a row, maybe fourth year in a row, 22, 23, 24, 25, where are we? They picked up Tyler Smith was an offensive guard with the 24th overall pick in the 2022 draft, and he's at the left guard spot. So I don't know. They picked up Robert Jones. I mentioned him before. Robert Jones spent the last 4 seasons with the Miami Dolphins. Maybe he's just going to be a backup now. I don't know if they move him over to right guard, or maybe they're not happy with Tyler Smith at left guard, switch him over. Either way, they've got 3 offensive linemen now that they've drafted in the first round since 2022. Maybe that's because they don't have a very good running back in there with Javonte Williams, Mike Sanders, Deuce Vaughn. Which way are they going to go there? Probably need a little extra time to open up some space for CeeDee Lamb. So that is where Dallas decided that they were going to go. I had bigger concerns from them. I was looking wide receiver. I was looking running back. I was looking cornerback even, but offensive line for the last for the third time in the last 4 years going offensive line. All right, moving on to the Miami Dolphins at pick number 13. Miami finished 8-9 last year. They still got Mike McDaniels as the head coach there, where they finished second in the AFC East. The Dolphins were top 10 in defense, 4th in fewest yards allowed, 9th in passing yards, 9th in rushing yards. They were 10th in points allowed. Their weak spots were on their offense, where they were 22nd in points, 21st in rushing. So in the offseason, of course, they went out and they signed Nick Westbrook-Ikeen, wide receiver, who spent the last 5 years in Tennessee. They went out and signed an offensive guard. James Daniels, who spent the last 3 years in Pittsburgh. They went out and signed a defensive end, Matt Dickerson, who spent the last year in Kansas City. Safety, a couple of safeties, actually. Ashton Davis, who spent the last 5 years with the Jets. I would say the draft needs for Miami, and this is really dependent on what is going to happen with the Cheetah and where is he going to go? Are they going to think maybe wide receiver here? I think they've got bigger needs. I would go edge, defensive line, maybe wide receiver as a third option. But as it is right now, they still got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and then, like I said, they picked up Nick Westbrook. He'll probably be the number 3 guy there now. And best guy that I've got on my board still, Jalen Walker from Georgia. He's still the best guy that I've got on my board. I had him going top 10 for sure. And we are on number 13. So I'm wondering how far this guy is going to slide. They don't need second best guy on my board that they don't necessarily need, because I'm a big fan of Jonnu Smith. I don't think he did enough last year, but I liked him when he was in Atlanta too. Tyler Warren from Penn State would be my second best pick there. Maybe, like I said before, they could use a cornerback. They could use an edge. Maybe they're looking at Mike Green. But, yeah, I've got Tyler Warren ranked second best player behind Jalen Walker. Boy, hate to keep saying Jalen Walker's name, but that is the guy I'm looking at. Walter Nolan from Mississippi. I mentioned him before. Maybe cornerback. I think it would be a stretch to go for Shamar Stewart at this point. They don't need a running back. Maybe Will Johnson. I had him going in this range, kind of between 9. Heck, I've had Will Johnson really between like 9 and 26. So he could definitely fall in here too if they felt cornerback was their biggest need. And they went Kenneth Grant. So they went defensive line. Dang it. I liked Kenneth Grant. I was kind of hoping that he was going to fall down to 27. Kenneth Grant. Shoot. Well, I think it's a little early for Kenneth Grant. Honestly, I don't recall having seen any mock drafts where he was going really in the teens. If I remember correctly, there was only one individual, Mike Florio, who had him in the teens. I don't think anybody else really did. So Kenneth Grant from Michigan, going number 13. Yeah, in my mock drafts, I had him in the early 20s. So that's a bummer for anybody else looking for that defensive tackle spot. Now you're going to have to go with Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon maybe, if you're looking for defensive line. But I did have, and I did say that was one of their biggest things that they needed: edge, defensive line, and wide receiver. So I guess I'm not that surprised, except for the fact that I probably would have went with Walter Nolan first. I had him ahead of Kenneth Grant at that point. Huh. All right, well, we're moving on up. We got the Colts, and apparently their pick is in right now. The Colts finished 8-9 last year. They were third in the AFC South. Shane Steichen is still their head coach there, second year. Colts were inefficient across the board last year. The defense, they were 29th in yards allowed, 26th in passing yards allowed, 24th in rushing allowed, and points allowed. Their offense was 25th in passing yards. They were 17th in points scored. And the only moves that they really made in the offseason, they signed Darnell Jones, Darnell. They signed Daniel Jones as a quarterback to play behind Anthony Richardson. Otherwise, it was really just a lot of depth pieces. They signed cornerback Shavarius Ward from San Fran. He spent the last 3 years with the 49ers. And they signed Cameron Bynum, safety from Minnesota from the last 4 years. So They address a little bit of their defensive backs. I don't think they're going to be going that route. Their top needs, I would say, and here's where, tight end would fall right in place. So they might be happy that Chicago went ahead and took Colston Loveland. I think that they're going to go ahead and they're going to take Tyler Warren from Penn State. So says the pick is in. I guess we're just waiting. But I would say Tyler Warren. And there it is, Tyler Warren. That's honestly what they needed for the last couple of years. Last year, I thought that they were going to grab Brock Bowers, and I'm betting that they wish they would have. I think Tyler Warren, he's not as good as Brock Bowers, but he's the best tight end coming out of this draft, going number 14 to the Indianapolis Colts. And, maybe, again, another one of those situations where, Carolina went ahead and they picked a wide receiver, make it a break year for Bryce Young, maybe. And, how can you make it easier for a quarterback? You give him a tight end like Tyler Warren, great pass catching, tall. He's going to be a big target. He gets separation. He's a great end zone target, great hands, gets his feet down. So he plays like a wide receiver. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Likely. He's not a real big guy where he's going to be doing a whole lot of blocking. But yeah, you could line him up at wide receiver. Boy, that could be a good threat for the Indianapolis Colts. Now all they need to do is get a decent quarterback. But I think this will be a make it or break it year for Anthony Richardson as well. So best guys on the board as we're waiting for Atlanta now. They've got about 6 minutes. Best guys that I have on the board at this point. Again, Jalen Walker. How awesome would it be if he went playing for Georgia just to go into Atlanta? But again, Jalen Walker still my best guy on the board at this point. Followed by, let me see, Jahdae Barron, possibly Mike Green, possibly Shamar Stewart, Will Johnson. They're all kind of mishmashed in there. But I think you could go edge or cornerback, and either one would help Atlanta at this point. Atlanta, they had a pretty decent offense, despite what people might think. They were actually 6th in total yards, 5th in passing yards. They're two-headed monster in the backfield. They were 10th in rushing yards and 13th in points overall. So you would have thought they were pretty good. But when it came to defense, they gave up the they were 23rd, I guess, for fewest yards allowed. So they were in the top 10 for yards allowed, passing yards allowed, points allowed. So they had a pretty formidable defense up front. They could get some more pressure on the quarterback. Didn't allow. They were right in the middle there at 16th for rushing yards allowed. But still, I would go. So with Geico, we can easily bundle home and car. Yeah, I would go either edge or cornerback at that point for Atlanta.
So can I get chorizo?
Yeah, better for it, yeah.
Carnita.
Just chicken. Just give me a bunch of chicken.
Ooh, bacon?
Oh, wait, there isn't too much hot sauce, is it? I have a sensitive palate.
I actually like hot sauce. Can I get chips?
How about guacamole?
I don't really know what we're talking about, do I?
Burritos.
For luckily made easy, get more with Geico.
Yeah, get back to Tyler Warren, John Mackey Award winner last year, first team All-American last year, first team All Big Ten last year. He was third team All Big Ten in 2023. 6'5", like I said before, big target, 256 pounds. So he's kind of this hybrid type of a tight end / wide receiver. He's got great hands. Played tight end and fullback, so you could stick him in some kind of weird formations in the backfield. But he is a relatively fast tight end. He's going to make trouble for slower linebackers getting stuck on him. Good pick by the Indianapolis Colts. I will give them that. Atlanta Falcons haven't made a selection yet. I wonder if they're looking for some trade partners. They've got about 2.5 minutes left. But over the last 5 years, they've been a little bit of an abysmal team as well. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, 51 losses over the last 5 years. It's tied for 7th overall. Finished 8-9 last year with Raheem Mostert coming into his second year. And this guy, I don't know if he's ever had a winning season. I don't know why teams, and I said this last year when they hired him, I don't know why teams keep giving him a chance. Because everywhere where he's been a head coach, they haven't done very well. As far as like off-season moves that they made, no major changes to the offense. Maybe just some questions about who's going to be quarterback number one. Kirk Cousins showed up to camp earlier this week to show what he can do. Maybe just getting in the coaches' faces and say, hey, do something with me. If you're going to play me, play me. If you're going to trade me, trade me. So who's going to be the starting quarterback in Atlanta this year? Is it going to be Michael Penix Jr.? Is it going to be Kirk Cousins? They went out and signed Easton Stick. Not that that means anything, except for they've got some kind of a backup option at quarterback should they decide to trade Kirk Cousins if they can find a team really stupid enough to take the contract that he's got and the age that he's got and coming off the injury that he came off of a year and a half ago. But otherwise, on the defensive side of the ball, the Falcons signed defensive end Morgan Fox, who spent the last 3 years with the LA Chargers. They signed defensive end Leonard Floyd, who spent last year with San Fran. Linebacker Divine Diablo, who spent the last 4 years with the Las Vegas Raiders. And then strong safety Jordan Fuller, who spent last year with Carolina. So their biggest opportunities in Atlanta, I would say, edge, defensive tackle, cornerback. So this fits very well with where they're picking right now because they've got their option here. Maybe they're just kind of making some last-minute decisions, but there are about 35 seconds left on the clock, and they still have not made a selection yet, which is kind of fun. Oh, and now, as I was just going to say, if they didn't get it in within the next 30 seconds, obviously you've got that opportunity where Arizona's picking 16th. They could jump up in front of them for somebody, but apparently Atlanta has just made their selection. Seeing as how they could use a linebacker in Atlanta, they play a 3-4 defense, so there's always room for linebackers. Jalen Walker, again, it's hard not to throw his name out there when, boy, he hasn't slid. Maybe one draft had him sliding to, that I've seen, sliding to number 15, and that is right where Atlanta is right now, and that was Daniel Jeremiah with the NFL Network. So we're getting into this fun time. On my draft boards, I had Jalen Walker anywhere from 8 to 11, so I would say that he is definitely due. Maybe Atlanta, well, no, they got their pick in, but maybe Atlanta was looking for a trade partner if they're not sold on Jalen Walker.
Round, that isn't a resource. That is one of the greatest contract advantages that any team builder would like to have in the NFL.
Phil, that's a great point. We'll certainly keep an eye on it. There's several guys who will be impacted by that. The Falcons got their quarterback last year when they pulled the surprise at the early part of the draft. Took Michael Penix from Washington, 8th overall. But now they have the 15th pick for years.
All right, let's go, Commissioner.
Let's see what they do.
Who's thinking Jalen Walker?
The Atlanta Falcons select Jalen Walker.
Jalen Walker it is. It's about time. So Jalen Walker doesn't have to move very far, seeing as how he was in Georgia playing for the Bulldogs to begin with. You know, we talked about this before. I think when the Bears were picking on how the Bears should pick him up, just listing off the accolades that Jalen Walker has. Second team All SEC last year, first team All American last year, and the Butkus Award winner last year as well. I don't know how you pass up on this kid. 6'1", 243 pounds. He's part of the national championship team that beat TCU. He's played in a lot of games. His freshman year, he played in all 15 games. His sophomore year, he played in 14 games. Yeah, he's got quick hands, a lot of good moves, a motor that doesn't stop. Jalen Walker, that's a great pick. That makes up almost for the Dallas Turner non-selection last year. So we've got the Arizona Cardinals picking 16, which means we are almost halfway through the draft. And just kind of going over who I've got for my best players on the board at this point for Arizona. Is it Shamar Stewart? Could be. They don't need a running back at this point. Probably Will Johnson. I'd put Will Johnson above Shamar Stewart. Jahdae Barron is right there as well. So one of those two. Probably go cornerback if I'm Arizona, because I'm guessing I do know that's what they could use on the team. Arizona picking at 16, finished last year at 8-9. They were third in the NFC West with Jonathan Gannon starting his third season as the head coach there. Arizona's record would indicate, they were average to below average in pretty much every category. They were 21st defensively in total yards allowed, 15th in points allowed. On the offense, they were 11th in total yards. They were 12th in points scored. In the offseason, they signed offensive guard Royce Newman, who last year played for the Tampa Bay Bucks. They signed Jacoby Brissett, who was with New England last year, as a backup to Kyler Murray. On the defensive side of the ball, they signed Josh Sweat, who spent the last 7 years in Philadelphia. So there was a nice defensive pickup. They got Calais Campbell back, and I think he's like 39 years old, but he's a big part of that defensive line as well. He started off with the Arizona Cardinals, and it looks like he's probably going to finish with the Arizona Cardinals. Last year he was in Miami, but he was a Cardinal from 2008 to 2016. They also got defensive lineman Delvin Tomlinson, who spent the last 2 years in Cleveland, and then linebacker Akeem Davis Gaither, who spent the last 5 years in Cincinnati. So they bulked up the defense already, which indicates to me that, they knew that the defense was going to be a problem. They could go in a couple of different directions here, but I think defense and maybe especially cornerback, they didn't address that in the offseason. This would be a good spot to address that back end of the defense. They have Sean Murphy-Bunting. They have Sterling Thomas. They could use some more help back there, I would say, by the cornerback. So I'm going to go cornerback, and I don't think that you can lose between Will Johnson, who I might pick ahead of Jahdae Barron from Texas. But, yeah, one of those two. I'm going to guess it's them. So defensive back, because you've already addressed the defensive line. You've already addressed linebackers. Get the rest of the defense going. Arizona isn't too far away from Texas. Anyone disagree? All right, the pick is in. And here comes Roger Goodell.
With the 16th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolan.
Oh, boy. I hate them now. I hate you, Arizona. Fans look like they're split. The pick is in, and they took Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. And there goes my hopes and dreams of having that big boy wearing purple and black. That is a bummer. I was kind of hoping they would go corner. Walter Nolan, great defensive tackle. I had him a little bit further down. I figured he'd make it into the 20s before he would get picked up, hopefully sliding down. But he was a junior last year at Ole Miss, 6'4", about 300 pounds. You know, he's NFL ready. You watch him play. He's got great burst off the line. You're going to have to double team him. I don't think you're going to be, unless you've got a really good offensive lineman, like a Pro Bowl offensive lineman, you're going to have to double team this kid because he will break through punches. He's got a great swim move. He's fast with his hands. He will knock offensive linemen's hands off of him. He can play across the line. Just great instinctual defensive lineman. He's a consensus All-American last year, first team All-SEC. Yep, great defensive lineman. Good pick for the Arizona Cardinals. I felt like they picked up enough people. Calais Campbell, Josh Sweat, their D-line is going to be something to be reckoned with. Delvin Tomlinson, I mean, these guys you've got a good front right there. That's what they're building. They are definitely building the trenches in Arizona. Walter Nolan. Wow. And my ranking on him was 16.6, so him going at 16 was right there. A lot of people had him going number 11 to San Fran. We mentioned how they needed some defensive line help. But now we've got the Cincinnati Bengals. As a Ravens fan, this is something that I'm looking forward to. I've already seen what the Browns did by trading back. That was an interesting move. And picking up defensive tackle Mason Graham. Let's see if the Cincinnati Bengals have the same mentality of defense to try to slow down their opponents. They should. They should. And I think if you've seen any Bengals games last year, you know their defense, they'll put up 35 points on you with their offense, but their defense is going to let you down every time. The Bengals finished first in passing yards on offense. They finished sixth in points. They finished ninth in total yards, although their rushing game, because their defense kept on blowing games for them, kept blowing leads for them, they could never really get their running game going. Their running game was 30th in the NFL. But when your defense is ranked 7th for yards allowed, they're ranked 7th for points allowed, most points allowed. It's not great. They were losing games 35-42. So Cincinnati does need to go after some defense. They finished the year last year 9-8. They were 3rd in the AFC North with Zach Taylor being their head coach since 2018. No major changes to the offense outside of re-signing. They've got Burrow, they've got Jamar Chase, they've got T. Higgins. They made a big deal out of that. They're spending a lot of money on their offense. Congratulations, your defense and Hendrickson and everything else is just going to waste. But like I said, offensively, they were number 1 in passing. but 30th in rushing yards. Defensively, they were 25th in total yards allowed and points allowed. Their only signings, I should say, that made any difference whatsoever over the offseason is probably because they spent a bunch of money on their offense. They did sign defensive tackle T.J. Slayton. He spent the last 4 years with Green Bay. Otherwise, they signed linebacker Oren Burks, who spent last year in Philadelphia. Obviously, their need is defense. Number one, edge, cornerback, linebacker, potentially in that order is where I would go. Best players on my board at that point for these guys, I've got Shamar Stewart ranked at about a 19.8, so could be a little bit early for him yet, but all of these guys are kind of ranked the same way. Will Johnson, I got him ranked 19th, or with a ranking of 19. They don't need a running back, otherwise Amari and Hampton would be right there. We still got Jahdae Barron from Texas. I've got him ranked 18.2. Mike Green, if they wanted to go edge, he's still there. I've got him ranked 19.9. Now we're getting into the Jihad Campbell from Alabama, linebacker, 19.1. So I don't think they're going to go offensive line, but there's quite a bit of defense that they can choose from here.
They understand how to celebrate football here, whether it is a Packers game or whether it is the draft. Find a little spot, get the fire going. What a community.
As we wait for Cincinnati to make their pick in the 2025 draft. And the pick is in. This should be interesting. There's a lot of defense on the board. And any of the guys that I just mentioned would be solid for them. I wonder if anybody at these draft parties actually likes Roger Goodell. He seems to get booed quite a bit. Here we go. The pick is in.
In the 2025 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Shamar Stewart, defensive end.
Shamar Stewart. So one of the guys that I mentioned before.
It is a remarkably gifted athlete. His wingspan is longer than LeBron James. Wow.
And the one thing that has been said about Shamar Stewart is that you're going to have to contain his emotions out on the field. He gets into quite a few scuffles. He was at Texas A&M. A little bit of a work in progress for Shamar Stewart, but the talent is definitely there. 6'5", 265 pounds, had a better year probably last year than he in 2023 than he did in 2024. So that's probably the fall from grace there at Texas A&M. But again, another big, fast guy. Maybe it's somebody that they're hoping can get after Lamar on the other side of the ball. Because let's face it, that's who they're chasing after. Shamar Stewart, number 17. And I believe my last one, I actually had him at 17 on my last mock. 15, 15, 17. Kudos to Luke Easterling at Athlon Sports for nailing that one as well. Bucky Brooks and Dan Parr at NFL. So good, fast, explosive player. Numbers aren't always there, but he is opening up holes for other individuals as well. He causes some chaos. He doesn't always get to the play. So finishing plays is going to be a big thing for the coaches on that Cincinnati defense there, to get him to be able to finish plays, finish play strong, stay on his feet, and really just kind of stay out of trouble, really. So we got the Seattle Seahawks are on the clock, and they've got 3.5 minutes left. Seattle picking number 18 this year. 10-7 last year under Mike McDonald's first year, former defensive coordinator for the Ravens. It's going to be his second year this year. The Seahawks' biggest issue was their run offense. They were 28th in rushing last year. They were 18th in points and 14th in total yards, but the running game was not there. And I'm wondering if it was because the defenses were teeing off on the running game because they knew that Geno Smith, not that great of a quarterback, even though he had all those weapons to work with. On defense, they were 14th in yards allowed, 12th in points allowed. And in the offense, they had a couple of signings, key signings. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously, they went with Sam Darnold out of Minnesota. After his 1 year in Minnesota, they went ahead and went with Sam Darnold. Maybe they were trying to make San Fran look bad because San Fran had him as a backup behind Brock Purdy. Who knows? But Sam Darnold, after his 1 year and his epic collapse toward the end of the year, they signed him, and they got wide receiver Cooper Kupp, who spent the last 8 seasons with the LA Rams, coming off of multiple injuries. There are some individuals that think that he's washed, he can't play. We'll see what happens this year. They also signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who spent last year in New Orleans. So they doubled down on the wide receivers and the quarterbacks. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they get 11-year veteran, spent all 11 years with Dallas, DeMarcus Lawrence. They could use on offense a tight end or a wide receiver at this point. I would not be surprised. I've seen multiple mock drafts where they've gone after Matthew Golden. I think it is going to be too early in the draft now to go after a tight end. Both tight ends are gone at this point. I think it's still too early for like a Mason Taylor out of LSU. But if they were going to go offense, they could go Matthew Golden, and I think that would be a pretty solid pick for him. My best players on the board are mostly defense, though. Cornerback Will Johnson, still out there. Cornerback Jahdae Barron, still out there. I mean, that would be a great pairing in Seattle. And you, like I said, you have Mike McDonald there, who's defensive-minded. You could pair these guys up there on the other side, that cornerback tandem. You could have a cornerback tandem with Devin Witherspoon. But we'll see what they got. Right now, the pick is in.
Seattle Seahawks select Gray Zabel.
Oof, and they went interior offensive line, Gray Zabel. And this is a guy that was just kind of all over the board from earlier in the draft. I mean, I had him anywhere from landing at number 12 to number 31, realistically, depending on how other teams had picked. So he falls at number 18. And there were quite a few experts that saw this one coming. In particular, Dan Parr again. Great job. Give him credit where it's due. Nate Tice from Yahoo. Albert Brewer from SI.com. Had him at number 18 as well. I tell you what, and I'm always kind of worried about these guys. Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. You know, you can be refined, and he was playing left tackle there, but he can play interior as well. Fast, strong, but you got to remember the competition that he's going up against at North Dakota State. It's not like he's playing at Georgia or Alabama or any of these other big schools, which is why he's probably going to have to move to interior line. With the smaller school playing tackle, they're probably going to have to move him in a little bit. I'm not such a fan of this one. There were some mock drafts didn't even have him going in the first round. So it's a little tricky with Gray Zabel. But I'm glad he's off the board because I don't want my team to even try to consider going after him. I guess you could say he was a little bit of a gray area. Whoa. He's got a good mustache, though. We'll give him that. two-time FCS national champion in 2021 and 2024. First team FCS All-American last year. First team All-MVFC last year as well. 6'5", 6'6" low 300s, about 310, 315.
Hopefully the farm continues to grow, but it's been a good year so far.
So he spent 5 years there, hopefully honing his skills for the North Dakota State Bison.
This baby hits 88 miles per hour.
And maybe that is what that offense is going to need with their new pieces, including Sam Darnold. All right, next up, we've got another fun team. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Bucs are drafting number 19 now. They finished 10-7. They are actually the first division winner to be picking in this year's draft at 10-7. Todd Bowles is still their head coach there entering his fourth year. So the first division winners of the draft this year. Great offense last year, even despite losing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They finished third in total yards and in passing yards, and they finished fourth in rushing yards and total points. So the offense is not the key for them to be focusing on, even, like I said, with losing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So Baker Mayfield doing a great job there. They got a good ground game. The defense, obviously not so good. They gave up the fourth most passing yards. They finished 18th in total yards and 16th in points allowed. In the offseason, they signed linebacker Anthony Walker Jr., who spent last year in Miami. Not a very far move from him, going from Miami to Tampa Bay. And then they got defensive end Hassan Reddick. And I got to tell you, that one kind of fell under the radar for me. I did not know what happened to him after he wasn't playing that much, or he kind of sat out for a little bit, spending 1 year with the New York Jets and then got out of there. And they signed some other pieces too, but they were mainly just depth pieces. Again, this is a great draft spot for Tampa Bay because they need defense. They need edge. They need linebacker. They need cornerback. And again, the same group of people that I keep bringing up. You got Will Johnson's on the board. You got Jahad Campbell, which is probably the hands favorite for him to go there as a linebacker. Will Johnson, not sure if I mentioned him twice, but you've got some really good defensive players that are still on the board at this point in time, so they can really kind of sit back and take their time as much as they can. Mike Green is there for Marshall yet. So crazy. You got a lot of great picks here at number 9 that you could go with. So the pick is in. Who are you thinking for Tampa Bay? How are they going to stay on top of that division outside of, just kind of depending on the rest of the teams in that division to continue to self-destruct? The Carolina Panthers are probably not going to be a rival for the division winners. Neither are the New Orleans Saints, unless they can figure out what they're going to do at the quarterback situation here with the news that Derek Carr might not play. Atlanta, they just had a really great pick. They would probably be the only team if they can get Michael Penix Jr. up to par, or if Kirk Cousins comes back. This division is wide open, and I know I've mentioned it a couple of times. If New Orleans can't figure out their quarterback situation, Aaron Rodgers is always sitting on the wings. And how about Ryan Tannehill? He's another one that's name was bounced around in the offseason for teams like the Minnesota Vikings and these teams that need a veteran backup quarterback. If I'm Aaron Rodgers at this point, just on a side note, I'm looking at the weakest divisions in the NFL to go and try to play for, right? And I think the NFC South and the AFC South are probably the two weakest divisions in the NFL. In the AFC South, you've got Tennessee and Jacksonville. Houston would be your only one that you're really going up against, and then you've got Indianapolis, and those aren't really a threat. But we got the commissioner up, so let's see what defensive player that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers picked.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver,
Wow, and they went wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka. That is kind of awesome. I mean, for my team anyway, I don't know if it's good for their team. I'm not too sure about this pick. I mean, to be honest with you, I think I didn't even have him in any of my mock drafts. I did not have him reaching the first round. And now he's not even my best wide receiver on the board. I can't believe that they didn't go with Matthew Golden out of Texas. But looking at Emeka Egbuka, I don't think Tampa Bay is picking 19. There were a few people that saw mid-20s, maybe going mid-20s. I did have him in my last mock draft as 29, so I do take that back. I had him at 29, but going 19, that seems to be a little bit high for me, especially going before Matthew Golden. I will take it, though, because that just frees up one more defensive player for my Ravens to go after when they pick at 27. But looking at him, he's 6'1", about 200 pounds, played for Ohio State for, 3 years, 4 years. CFP national champion, obviously, in 2024. Second team All Big Ten in 2022. Two-time third team All Big Ten in 23 and 24. But realistically, above average height, above average size, above average hands, only really above average for me. I'm not sure why Tampa Bay would feel the need to go after a wide receiver at this point, especially when they've got guys coming back. And the wide receivers on their team, well, we just kind of went over the numbers before. They didn't drop off when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got hurt. Jalen McMillan still played really well. They went out and they signed Sterling Shepard in the offseason. They've got Trey Palmer. I'm not sure wide receiver was really their biggest need here, but maybe they know something that the rest of us don't with their injuries to their two wide receivers. I mean, they're getting older as well. Mike Evans is going to be 32 to start the season. I just don't get it. Not the pick I would have made, but we're good with that, I guess. Coming up with the 20th pick overall, this should be interesting with the Denver Broncos. I think everybody is really expecting them to go running back at this point. I know that I am. Looking at how they finished last year, though, they were 10-7. They finished third in the AFC West. Sean Payton's second year coming in as head coach. Defensively, they were a solid team. They were third in least points allowed and in rushing yards allowed, although they were 19th in passing yards allowed. So I guess when you can pass all over a team, you don't really have to run a whole lot on them. But at least they were good in not giving up a whole lot of points. They made games really close offensively. With rookie Bo Nix, they were 19th in total yards, 20th in passing, but 10th in points scored. So they took advantage. It seemed like they were very efficient anyway in a couple of different categories, which is what you would expect from a Sean Payton-led team. They didn't do a whole lot in the offseason, but they did sign a couple of big names, three of those big names. Tight end Evan Ingram, who spent the last 3 years in Jacksonville. We went over his numbers before. One of the better tight ends, actually, in the NFL. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw, who spent the last 6 years in San Francisco. And they got safety Talanoa Hufanga from San Francisco as well. So they were kind of poaching some of the guys that San Fran couldn't afford to pay anymore and had to let go. Under my needs for the Broncos, edge maybe, but more so running back, wide receiver. I'd probably go offense on this one. I think the hands down kind of favorite here is going to be Amarian Hampton from North Carolina. Although in some mock drafts he's fallen out of the first round. Maybe they think that they can get a different halfback later on if they trade back up. Maybe Tre'Von Henderson type of a guy, or maybe later on. Definitely not my best player on the board right now, or highest ranked player. Right now, I still have Will Johnson as probably my best guy. Will Johnson, Jihad Campbell. It's a lot of defense. I got a lot of defensive guys that are ranked high yet. So where they need offense, they might be stretching a little bit. But you know what? Matthew Golden is actually right there too. I had Matthew Golden in these mock drafts going anywhere from number 12 to number 29. So I guess this kind of falls right in line there at number 20. If I had to make a guess, I would say get these guys some weapons. Since wide receiver just went off the board, hey, you know what? Maybe we go on a little bit of a wide receiver run here. If they were hoping for one of these guys to fall and the other one got picked, then they're doing pretty well. But Denver Broncos, their wide receiver core, not that great. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims Jr., and Devon Vele. Troy Franklin, we thought he was going to be something better, seeing as how he came from the same school as Bo Nix in Oregon there. But they could really use some offensive firepower. Running backs at this point, they've got Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, which they're high on. So, you know, maybe it is too early to go for a running back, but I would definitely take a look at maybe a wide receiver. But also wouldn't surprise me if they go defense here, just because of, like I said, there's a lot of good defensive players on the board. If you're looking at best player, you're going defense at this point. And then after Denver, I can't wait for this. Denver, you know, great, make your pick, all that fun stuff, and it's going to be wonderful. But then after that, we got Pittsburgh. And what is Pittsburgh going to do? Will the Shedeur Sanders saga end at number 21? Will they find their quarterback? Is it not Shedeur Sanders? Is it Jackson Dart? Is it someone else? But before we can get there, we need the commissioner to come out and let us know who in the heck the Denver Broncos picked. Oh, of course, it's a specialty pick. So they're going to talk about something that none of us really care about.
April is World Wish Month, and the NFL is proud to support the life-changing wishes that Make-A-Wish grants.
We got a Make-A-Wish Foundation kid making the pick.
One of those wishes will be coming true right now. Sam is a
I wonder if I can make a wish. I would like to announce a pick in the NFL draft. Anybody else got that? That's horrible to think about. Not making a pick, but, you know, taking that away from somebody who might actually, you know, we won't go down that road. We're getting deep in the weeds. So my best player on the board, Jahdae Barron. Otherwise, if they're looking wide receiver, they're going Matthew Golden. That's going to be my two big guesses right there. Jahdae Barron, there it is. All right, it's about time. So Jahdae Barron, 5'11", about 200 pounds, from Texas, where he spent the last 4 years. Jim Thorpe Award winner, consensus All-American, first team All-SEC. That was all 2024, and then in 2023 he was a second team All-Big Ten. You get to pair him up on the other side, cornerback with Pat Surtain, the second. I think we might have mentioned Riley Moss right now is probably their best bet at getting that number 2 cornerback spot. Spending 2 years with the Denver Broncos already. They drafted him in the 3rd round in 2023. He's decent. He's more of a special teams guy or a backfill guy, something like that. And then obviously they've got Jaquan McMillan as their nickel back. So making the defensive backfield a little bit better for the Denver Broncos. I think that was a solid pick. He was the best guy on the board at that point in time. So good job with that one, not overreaching, maybe for a Marion Hampton or maybe a Matthew Golden type of pick. But so good pick for Denver. I'm sure they'll get some offense later on. That is probably the best or the biggest need for them, to get a couple of weapons to help out Bo Nix. And we all know how offensive-minded Sean Payton is. But like I said before, let's move on to pick number 21. and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've got 5 minutes to make their pick, and this is going to be fun. I think this is the one pick that'll get everybody kind of off their seats a little bit, off the edge of their seat, because this is the perhaps last chance for Shedeur Sanders to get drafted in the first round here. So the Pittsburgh Steelers finished 10-7 last year. They were second in the AFC North behind the Ravens, and they still got Mike Tomlin there. What is this, his 18th season, something like that? He's been there since like 2007. But it was like the tale of two teams last year for the Steelers. They had a great first half in 2024, and then they bombed at the second part of the half. Offensively, they had a huge lead in that division, but they did have an easier schedule to start that first half of the year as well. All their hard games at the end, and they switched over from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson at the helm. But offensively, they were 23rd in total yards, and they were 27th in passing. Defensively, 25th in passing yards allowed, but 6th in fewest rushing yards allowed, and 8th in the fewest points allowed. So the defense wasn't bad. They were shutting down the run pretty well. They've got a great front, and they weren't giving up a whole lot of points. Offensively, they've got questions, and they've got even more questions now. They brought in, let's just go over it real quick. They signed Mason Rudolph. He's like their lone quarterback right now, unless you want to count Skylar Thompson, who I think came over from Miami. But last year, Mason Rudolph was in Tennessee after being with the Steelers from 2019 to 2023. And now the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf, who spent the last 6 years in Seattle. They traded a 2025, this year's 2nd, 6th, and 7th round draft pick just for DK Metcalf. They also went out and signed running back Kenneth Gainwell, who spent the last 4 years in Philadelphia. Cornerback Brandon Eccles, who spent the last 4 years with the Jets. And linebacker Malik Harrison, who spent the last 5 with Baltimore. And here's the pick. And I hate the Steelers. I hate the Steelers even more. The last defensive lineman that could go in the first round was Derek Harmon, and I was hoping he would fall to the Ravens, and he's not going to. So Derek Harmon from Oregon, who I had going anywhere from 21 to 28, so right in that same range. They don't go with Shedeur Sanders. It seemed like it was a pretty easy decision for them to not go there, but they go with the Oregon Duck, Derek Harmon. And like I said, I think that is the last defensive lineman that I had in the first round. Not a big deal. Still opens up a lot of edge opportunities and all that fun stuff. But, wow, Derek Harmon. Good pick by them on 2 different levels, really. Number one, because their defensive line is getting a little bit old. Cameron Hayward's been playing for like 20 damn years. Keanu Barton, he's brand new, but he's not very good. They run a 3-4 defense, so he'll fit in very well in that defense. He'll be a great replacement, unfortunately, for Cameron Hayward. Derek Harmon. So big guy again, 6'4", 315 pounds, coming out of college. Second team All Big Ten this last year. Yeah, durable guy. Makes plays happen, creates forced fumbles and turnovers. Yeah. Good pickup. All right, we got 22 is the LA Chargers. So don't know if I quite finished my little spiel on Pittsburgh there. They're going to have to figure out what the quarterback situation is. Maybe they move back up in the second round. They get a Jackson Dart or a Shedeur Sanders or something like that. Milrose, something like that. Who knows? But that was one of their biggest needs. I had quarterback, safety, and defensive line. I was kind of hoping they'd go quarterback just to take him off the board, but they went defensive line. Way to stick it to us. Appreciate that. Always fun. Number 22, we've got the 22nd pick in the draft. We've got the LA Chargers, who went 11-6 last year. They finished second in the AFC West. This will be Jim Harbaugh's second year as the head coach of the Chargers. Had a disappointing end to their season last year. A great defense. They gave up the fewest points allowed on defense. They were 7th versus the pass. They were 11th in fewest yards allowed. But their offense was kind of the bane of their existence for last year. They were 20th in total yards accumulated, 19th in passing yards. They were 11th in total points. So because of their defense, they were able to put some numbers on the board. But their defense really kept them alive. So here's the one caveat to that. Obviously, they lost Joey Bosa in the offseason. So no more Bosa on that end. He was injury prone anyway. I don't know if this is a really gigantic loss, how Chargers fans feel about it. But they signed running back Najee Harris from Pittsburgh. He spent the last 4 years with the Steelers. They re-signed wide receiver Mike Williams, who was with Pittsburgh last year, but he was with the Chargers from 2017 to 2023. They also signed offensive lineman Mekhi Becton, who was in Philadelphia last year, and defensive tackle Deshaun Hand from Miami. He spent the last 2 years with the Dolphins. Cornerback Dante Jackson, also from Pittsburgh, is now on the Chargers. My top picks for the Chargers, and this might work out well for them, in order was defensive tackle or defensive line. Which, like I mentioned before, with that last pick with Derek Harmon, there really aren't any first-round defensive linemen, I feel, anymore that are worth picking at that point. Tight end, again, I think it would be a reach, even at this point, to go for the next best tight end on the board, which is Mason Taylor from LSU. I don't think he goes until, maybe 32. If Philadelphia feels like if he's going to get into the top or the first round of the draft, he's probably the only hope there. Maybe Washington makes a move at 30 or at 29, but I seriously doubt it. But they could also use a wide receiver, and you got Matthew Golden right there from Texas. He's probably the best offensive weapon that you could pick up at this point in time. Like I said, they got their new running back with Najee Harris, so Amari Hampton isn't really, anything. They picked up Mike Williams, but you still got questions behind Quentin Johnston, all the drops that he had last year. Ladd McConkey is obviously a great one, but you have Matthew Golden there if you wanted to add to your wide receivers. Not the best guy on my board. Best guy on my board at this point, I think, is either Jahad Campbell, linebacker, or Will Johnson, cornerback. So I think you're going defense here if you're the Chargers. They run a 3-4 defense. So, again, 4 linebackers. It's not bad to always have some more linebackers handy, and then cornerbacks are always getting hurt. So they just signed, as I mentioned before, Dante Jackson from Pittsburgh. You kind of assume that they want him to start at one corner. You got Cam Hart at the other one. He was a rookie last year. He did okay. You could probably use some more depth at the cornerback spot, though. So if I had to guess, I'd say corner and Will Johnson from Michigan.
There's a very real chance that tomorrow we're opening our show wondering when and where will Shedeur Sanders hear his name called.
I hate this. I said this yesterday in the meeting that we shouldn't.
The Chargers are taking their sweet time here. They've got less than a minute to get their pick in before Green Bay can jump up in front of them. And I can't imagine Green Bay is going to wait too long. One of their biggest needs, if not their biggest need, is cornerback. So if I'm Green Bay, I'm waiting this 30 seconds right now. And if they don't get up there and pick Will Johnson, I'm going to stream up there and get his name in. Because he is probably, without a doubt, the best player on the board at this point. In a lot of mock drafts that in the beginning here, before this last week, I had him going anywhere 10 to 15, just based off of new information that came out this last week. It was probably closer to 15 to 20. But even then, I mean, we're picking number 22 right now. Green Bay is 23. I don't think you can let him go. And it looks like the Chargers barely got their pick in on time before the clock ran out. And then after the Chargers here, so we've got Green Bay at 23 and then Minnesota at 24. So you almost have to wonder how strategic Green Bay is going to be, knowing that Minnesota probably needs a safety more so than anything else, but defensive backs are defensive backs. So taking the best corner, taking the best safety, which we haven't seen any safeties come off the board yet. My thought is Malachi Starks comes off the board first, and then Nick Amamori from South Carolina. Mike Green is still out there. He's slid. Mike Green was projected to go probably early teens. Edge from Marshall. My bet is Will Johnson here for the Chargers. But again, Mike Green, Jahad Campbell, those would be my top three at this point. Let's go, Commissioner. Jeez. Go defense.
The 2025 NFL Draft. The Los Angeles Chargers select Omarion.
Oh, boy. Well, good news if your team hasn't picked yet and you're looking for defense. The Chargers just went running back Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, which is really weird to me because they have, like I mentioned before, in the offseason, they just picked up Najee Harris. They still have Kamani Vidal. I'm not sure what the thought process is here, except for obviously Jim Harbaugh does like to run the ball, which is why they drafted Joe Alt last year in the first round. But hey, I can't disagree with this one too much. I'm glad that they're picking up guys that free up other defensive players and give my Ravens some options for when they get to pick. Definitely not my best guy on the board. I didn't even have him in my last couple of mock drafts. I had him slated at number 20 to go to the Denver Broncos, but that was one time, and that was about it. So a little bit about Omarion Hampton. He's a bigger running back, 6 foot, 221 pounds. He was a two-time first-team All-American in 2023 and 24, two-time first-team All-ACC 23-24. Just not sure if they really needed to have a running back at that point. But we will see what happens. Two running backs in the first round. We might see that Travion Henderson from Ohio State get picked up at some point in time. But we've got 5.5 minutes until the Packers actually get to pick. Green Bay finished 11-6 last year. They were third in the NFC North. Matt LaFleur is entering his, sixth year as a head coach. They had a solid year last year. Their offense was 5th in total yards and rushing yards, 8th in points scored, 12th in passing, so great offense. Their defense was 6th in fewest yards allowed, 7th in fewest rushing yards allowed, 13th in fewest passing yards allowed, and then 6th in fewest points allowed. So very balanced team coming out of Green Bay, finishing 3rd in that very strong NFC North. The only moves, they made very limited moves in the offseason as well. They signed offensive guard Aaron Banks from San Fran, where he spent the last 3 years with the 49ers. They signed cornerback Nate Hobbs, who spent the last 4 years with the Las Vegas Raiders, and wide receiver Marcole Hardman, who spent the last 2 years in KC. And again, it seems like this is a scenario where if you're looking for defense, needs for Green Bay, I've got cornerback, safety, wide receiver, D-tackle, O-tackle in that order. So cornerback again, and my best guy on the board is Will Johnson from Michigan. Not sure why he's falling so far down. In my first 3 mock drafts, I had him at 10, 10, and 12. So having him at 19 is, we're beyond that, not by too much, but only 4 spots away. Will Johnson has got to be on the radar of both the Green Bay Packers and then the Minnesota Vikings, who pick next. Packers have 3.5 minutes left. And we've got 10 picks to go. 22 down, 10 to go. And my top guys that I have remaining, again, are Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. I've got edge Mike Green from Marshall. I've got linebacker Jihad Campbell from Alabama. And those are my top 3. And on the outside, I got Matthew Golden. If you're looking offense, he's probably my 4th highest ranked player on the board at this point.
I think the population of Green Bay,
I would love to see Will Johnson fall down to number 27. Otherwise, I'll take Mike Green. I'll take Jihad Campbell. I'll take, Malachi Starks. Maxwell Harrison is still there from Kentucky. Had him a little bit farther down. Trey Amos is still there if you're looking for D-backs, although I had him ranked a little bit lower, not a first-day draft pick. All right, Packers pick is finally in. They're a little bit slow there.
Occasionally there will be some head-scratching moments still as he evolves and develops in his career, but a super talented throwing guy. if they get a wide receiver to go with it, or maybe some other underneath for a cornerback.
You got to wonder with all the defensive backs that are still there, if they're just indifferent about which one that they want to get. There's 2 good safeties. There's a couple of good corners. If they were trying to make a deal up until the last minute for someone to move up, maybe somebody that needed a wide receiver. Because I don't think it's Green Bay. And I don't think Minnesota's looking wide receiver. Maybe Houston. But I think offensive line be more important to them.
What people don't understand about the draft is you not only have to have the best offensive tackles and the best corners, you have to have this offensive tackle rated against this corner who has a higher grade. So when you go 1 through 100, they're going to match up. And when they match up, you know when you get to this point in the draft, you're going to have the guys that you want to pick.
And the pick is in as Commissioner Roger Goodell will
All right, let's go, Goodell.
microphone with a very special guest in Packers lore. Mark Murphy is with him.
Okay, Green Bay, it's your time. To make this historic pick,
And here's something funny. If you are, or interesting at least, if you don't think that the Ravens offense is primed to have another great year this year, take a look at the first-round picks of the guys in their division. The Cleveland Browns with the number 5 pick went defensive lineman Mason Graham. The Cincinnati Bengals with the 17th overall pick went defensive lineman Shamar Stewart. And with the 21st pick in the draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers went defensive line Derek Harmon. So I think they've all got one thing in mind, and that is stopping the duo of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
everywhere, because our fans are everywhere. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the NFL Draft at Lambeau Field. It is our honor and privilege to host this wonderful event in our community, particularly since we are the only community-owned team in the NFL. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are owners?
All right, let's move it along.
We also have the best owners in the NFL.
How Will Johnson is still on the board is amazing to me, and it wouldn't bother me one bit after picking Nate Wiggins with our number 1 pick last year if we picked up another corner.
In the 2025 NFL Draft, the 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers, for the first time since 2002,
Oh,
draft a wide receiver.
Oh, they're going wide receiver.
Matthew Golden, wide receiver.
Wow, that is awesome. Didn't think that was going to happen. Matthew Golden going to the green and gold. At number 23. That is fantastic. Matthew Golden, really, really fast guy.
This guy is an outstanding football player. He's a playmaker at the catch point. In other words, he's not a great big guy, but he makes a lot of contested catches.
5'11", speedster, about 190 pounds.
He's a track guy, right? That's a straight line guy. This is a football player. This guy's getting in and out of breaks. This guy's
Second team All Big Ten in 2023. And he led the Texans with 49 receptions for 787 yards and 8 touchdowns. So Matthew Golden joins really an already crowded wide receiver room in Green Bay, but giving Jordan Love another weapon to go to, apparently. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavius Wicks, Marcole Holdman. I just said that or Marcole Hardman that they just signed in the offseason here. You got 6 wide receivers. How many are you going to plan to put out on the field? Because now you got Matthew Golden. I get it that Christian Watson is injury prone. Maybe you're going to move on from him. Who knows? But that's a little strange to go for another wide receiver when you're so desperate for defensive backs. But we've got Minnesota. And now the Vikings, I'm sure, they already had their pick ready to go because if they don't go defense, I don't know what they're going to do. They've only got 4 picks in this draft, which I would have bet that they either, my number one guess would have been that they trade back and get some more picks because they've got a lot of holes on that team. But the Minnesota Vikings, 14-3 last year, second in the NFC North after the Lions. This would be the 4th year for Kevin O'Connell as the head coach. Offensively, they were 6th in passing, 9th in total points, but 19th in rushing yards and 12th in total yards. So the run defense wasn't great. You would have thought that Sam Darnold would have been the weak spot on that offense, but he definitely wasn't. Defensively, they were the 2nd best run-stopping defense in the NFL, and they gave up the 5th fewest points. But they were also 28th versus the pass and gave up the 16th most yards. So this is where that defensive back kind of comes into play here. You got to go safety. You got to go cornerback because that's the biggest thing. They traded in the offseason they traded guard Ed Ingram to Houston for a 2026 6th rounder. That doesn't do them any good this year. And they also signed center. They did a lot of work on their offensive line. So they signed center Ryan Kelly, who is with the Indianapolis Colts for the last 9 years. And they took offensive guard Will Fries from Indy, who'd been there for the last 3 years. Defensive line, they got Jonathan Allen. Great pickup there. Great signing. He spent the last 8 years with the Washington Commanders. They also picked up defensive lineman Javon Hargrave, who spent the last 2 years with the San Francisco 49ers. And they picked up cornerback Isaiah Rodgers from Philadelphia. He was with the Eagles last year. So what they really need, like I said, is more draft picks. But my first couple of bets is going to be, Harrison Smith. What is he, like 37 years old? I'll have to look that up. Great safety, but he's been in the league for a very long time. They need defensive backs, probably safety more so than anything else. They currently have 4 safeties. Harrison Smith, Theo Jackson, Jay Ward, Bubba Bolden. They've got a few more, cornerbacks, but they could definitely use another safety there. Harrison Smith, just to confirm, he is 36 years old. He's lost a step. This might very well be his last year, if not in the NFL, definitely for the Vikings as a whole. So if I'm them, I'm playing in safety all the way here. Best safety on the board. I've got Malachi Starks as the best safety on the board. Some people might disagree with Nick Amenwari from South Carolina. Either one. I think they're pretty comparable or comparable anyway. But still, my best player on the board at this point is Will Johnson. Will Johnson from Michigan, not unfamiliar with playing in the cold. But it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in. Wow. This draft is going just exactly crazy for the Ravens at this point. The Minnesota Vikings go with guard Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. Something that we did not need, so I am happy for them. Donovan Jackson, got to tell you, I did not have him in my first 3 mock drafts. And he fell in at number 28 on my last one. So he goes 24th to the Minnesota Vikings. I guess they needed help there even after why trade Ed Ingram? I guess would be my question. You traded Ed Ingram. You picked up Will Fries from Indianapolis. I'm not real. I don't really know how that plays out. Obviously, they need some offensive line as well. Christian Darrisaw is good. Brian O'Neill's good. But Ryan Kelly they picked up. Will Fries they picked up. I don't know. Maybe they're looking for somebody at that left side instead of Blake Brendel. Not sure. But regardless, Donovan Jackson, offensive guard for the Minnesota Vikings. Next up, we've got the Houston Texans, and I'm sure that they're not happy with that because Houston actually needed some offensive help. It's part of the reason why the Vikings traded Ed Ingram to Houston because they need some offensive line help. So the Texans finished 10-7 last year, first in the AFC South. D'Amico Ryans is coming into his third year with the Texans. The defense was still good in 2024. They gave up the 5th fewest total yards, the 6th fewest passing yards. They were 11th versus the run. On offense, though, they struggled with sophomore slump coming from C.J. Stroud. They struggled. 22nd in total yards, 21st in passing, 15th in rushing yards, and 19th in points scored. So for a playoff team and for a division winner, offense was subpar in pretty much every standard possible. So in the offseason, they traded for wide receiver Christian Kirk, who had been with the Jacksonville Jaguars for the last 3 years. They traded him for a 2026 7th-round pick. They also traded, like I mentioned before, for offensive guard Ed Ingram, who'd spent the last 3 years in Minnesota and they gave away a 2026 6th-round pick. So you got no 6th or 7th-round pick for next year, Houston fans. They signed offensive tackle Cam Robinson, who was also with Minnesota last year. They signed offensive guard Laken Tomlinson, who was with the Seattle Seahawks last year. And then they signed the offensive tackle Trent Brown, who was with Cincinnati last year. On the defensive side of the ball, they signed safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They didn't sign. They traded. And they actually traded offensive guard Kenyon Green to Philadelphia for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was in Philly last year. And then they also signed former Raven cornerback Ronald Darby, who also last year was with Jacksonville. So a lot of offensive line shuffling for the Houston Texans. I figured that they were going to go more offensive line, but once again, we've got cornerbacks, we've got safeties. I wouldn't bother to go wide receiver. Obviously, they lost Stephon Diggs, but they got Christian Kirk. They could go offensive line, more offensive line. But that looks like it's kind of a work in progress for next year as well. The offense being the sore spot there, I'm not sure which direction you're going to go with your first pick. I guess you don't go that direction because even on, looking at my board of maybe first-round draft picks yet, for the most part, I'm looking at defensive players except for Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. Maybe Josh Connerly Jr. from Houston. Those would be the last 2 offensive guys that I would probably assume are going to get picked unless somebody trades up and wants to go after Shedeur Sanders. Those look like, or if they're going to take, I mentioned it before, tight end Mason Taylor out of LSU. Those would really be the only guys that I would go with offensively. For the majority of the back end of this draft, it should be defense.
Best shot. From custom fittings to expert advice, Shields is your partner in pursuit of perfection. Because we chase it too. Building your next best shot starts with Shields.
This is the Giants draft room right now. They've already taken Abdul Carter, the standout edge rusher from Penn State, for the 3rd overall pick tonight. Now, they have Russell Wilson in their quarterback room.
Is there something going on with the? Oh boy, a trade here between the Houston Texans and the New York Giants. The Giants get back into the first round. The Giants received the 25th overall pick from Houston tonight, so they are picking now again. The Texans will receive a 2025 second-round pick, a 2025 third-round pick. So the Giants' second and third-round pick, and then a 2026 pick as well. And does this mean that the Giants are going to go after Shedeur Sanders, which they already signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson? This is so weird. There are teams that are stockpiling positions that they don't need. I wonder if that's what the Giants are going to do. Best guy on my board is still cornerback Will Johnson, but does this, they gave up a lot for this pick. Are they going Shedeur Sanders?
The Houston Texans have traded the 25th pick to the New York Giants. With the 25th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Jackson Dart, quarterback.
Oh, they didn't go Shedeur Sanders. They went quarterback, but they went Jackson Dart. They went Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Wow. Sorry, Shedeur. Well, that's fun. I didn't think we were going to see another quarterback this early. With 25, I thought maybe somebody might sneak up with Philly or the Chiefs at 31, maybe even the Bills at 30, but not 25 for Jackson Dart. I don't know if that really would have been worth it. Jackson Dart was not on any of my mock drafts.
At the same time, it's just a lot of fun to watch this character evolve. I had a Star Wars birthday team.
25 it is for Jackson Dart.
My friends came over. We all dressed up as different characters. So that's definitely an early memory of mine. My favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith or Empire Strikes Back.
25. Wow, does that open things up? So the Los Angeles Rams were supposed to be the next ones on the board, but it looks like the Los Angeles Rams traded their pick as well to the Atlanta Falcons. And what have the Atlanta Falcons done? And I guess I really don't care because that will leave the Ravens at 27. The Falcons could go cornerback. They could go safety. They might go edge. Are the Atlanta Falcons going to get Shedeur Sanders? Is that why they're moving up? That would be interesting considering the fact that Dion played in Atlanta. Looking back at the Atlanta Falcons now, their offense was good. Last year, we covered that before. They were 6th in total yards. They were 5th in passing yards. They were 10th in rushing yards, 13th in points, but their defense needed some help. And with their first pick, the Atlanta Falcons were at 15, and they took Jalen Walker from Georgia. So they took a linebacker, and now they're all congratulating themselves in the room here. They took Jalen Walker, who's an edge. They still needed, defense, really, a defensive line, cornerback. I'm going to bet that they moved up to get Will Johnson from Michigan. That's what I would bet. Although it would not surprise me if they went Mike Green from Marshall. One of those two. Otherwise, you can't possibly move up. So the Falcons received 20, 25, 26th overall pick, and the 2025 third round pick from the Rams. The Rams got 2025 second round pick, 2025 seventh round pick, and then a 2026 pick. So Rams weren't happy with what was on the board. Can't understand why. My biggest need for them was cornerback, linebacker. They're all right there. So maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they were just offered a little bit too much from Atlanta, but their pick is in. And I'm guessing Mike Green or Will Johnson.
To the Atlanta Falcons. With the 26th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select James Pierce Jr.
Oh, they selected James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. Well, he was not the best edge on the board as far as I'm concerned.
Two guys tonight from the Southeastern Conference, one from Georgia, one from Tennessee, who can get after the quarterback for sure. James Pierce Jr., Kirk, you and I saw him play in his home.
From Tennessee, that's fine with me.
Charlotte started playing at a very young age. Grew up a Packers fan, loved Keith Leaders, kind of played in Jefferson.
James Pierce Jr. In a couple of mock drafts, I had the Ravens actually picking him. He's fast, he's long, he can get in. And I'm going to guess that the Atlanta Falcons probably felt like the Ravens were going to take him. 6'5", 245. And now, Ravens, I hope you are picking Mike Green from Marshall or Will Johnson from Michigan. That would be fabulous. The Atlanta Falcons have just upgraded their defense quite a bit here. They will be making a run at the Tampa Bay Bucks. That is for sure.
Player of the year, he is still waiting in Canton, Texas to see if he's taken in the first round.
3.5 minutes for the Ravens. And let's recap what they did last year. So at number 7, we got the Baltimore Ravens. They finished the year 12-5, number 1 in the AFC North. John Harbaugh has been the head coach since 2008. So what does that mean? About 17 years. He just got a 3-year extension, so he'll be around for a few more years at least. They have a great offense already. Number 1 in total yards and rushing yards last year. They were 3rd in points scored and 7th in passing yards. So both on the ground and through the air, the offense was pretty proficient. Defensively, they gave up the fewest rushing yards for the year and the 9th fewest points and the 10th fewest total yards. But they gave up the 2nd most passing yards. So obviously, they get out to a lead. They've got a good offense. Teams are playing catch-up. They got to pass a lot. They abandon the run. The front 7, front 8 were pretty staunch for the Ravens anyway. In the offseason, the Ravens were pretty quiet. When they sign guys, they really only sign the best guys that are out there. They got wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, who last year was on the Kansas City Chiefs, so he gets to reunite with the King, Derrick Henry, back from when they were both playing in Tennessee. So DeAndre Hopkins is now joining that wide receiver room with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. And we signed possibly the best backup quarterback in the NFL, Cooper Rush, who spent the last 7 years in Dallas backing up Dak Prescott. So if anything happens to Lamar Jackson, you've got a formidable backup, better than Josh Johnson, better than Tyler Huntley, probably the best backup quarterback that we've had since Lamar Jackson was backing up Joe Flacco. So, and then they signed cornerback Chidobe Awuzie, and he was playing in Tennessee. So we're just kind of picking apart all the Tennessee players apparently over the last couple of years. My needs for the Ravens: edge, defensive line, offensive line, and safety, in that order. So if we want to go in that order, I'd have to go Mike Green would be my first pick there from Marshall. And in my first couple of drafts, I had him anywhere between, well, I had him 19, and then I had him at 20, and then I had him at 15, and then I had him at 28. So falling right behind us. So a little bit of a fall within the last week or so with Mike Green, but still a first-round prospect for sure. And again, my best guy on the board is cornerback Will Johnson from Michigan. I would not be opposed to that one either. We could always pick up an edge later. Cornerbacks, I feel like this draft, just looking at all 7 rounds, and the Ravens have 11 picks, a lot of cornerbacks out there that you could go out and get that are pretty decent. Same thing with edge rushers as well. But a cornerback to go with Nate Wiggins. Obviously, we lost Brandon Stevens last year. We've got Marlon Humphrey in more of a nickel role. You've got Kyle Hamilton back there. Ardarius Washington looks like he's going to be back as well. But overall, when you're looking at this draft and the amount of cornerbacks that are out there, you could probably pick up, maybe Trey Amos from Ole Miss in the second round. Or if you're looking farther down, Mello Dotson from Kansas. So I don't think we necessarily need to go cornerback. Benjamin Morrison would be another good cornerback to grab if he's still there. I'm big on Za Frazier from UTSA. I think he would be a great cornerback. Azareye'h Thomas, we could probably get him from Florida State. So I would go edge probably before cornerback, but I wouldn't be upset with either one. Even a safety, Malachi Starks would be okay. I don't think we need him with Kyle Hamilton back there, but that would be a good one. Again, Nick Amenwari from South Carolina, but the pick is in, so let's see what the Ravens did this year. Malachi Starks, safety. Okay. Former Georgia Bulldog. That's where our offensive coordinator is from, Malachi Starks. And this guy I had on the board going anywhere between 21 and 24. So to get him at 27, I will take that. Malachi Starks is a very high IQ type of safety. So he's not overly fast. He's a good tackler. He's very calculating when he's out on the field. 6'1", good size, about 200 pounds. CFP National Championship in 2022 with the Bulldogs. He's a consensus All-American in 2023, first-team All-American 2024, two-time first-team All-SEC 2023, 2024. He was even a freshman All-American in 2022. So great player. He's very smart. He can read the defense. If you think that Kyle Hamilton, who's arguably a top 3 safety in the NFL, let's multiply him by 2 now. Malachi Starks is just like that. He can get up on your tight ends. He can cover your running backs. He can be a deep guy. Like I said, he watches the quarterback's eyes. He's got great recovery speed, but sometimes he can get burned by the faster wide receivers that are out there. One thing that he'll have to look out for. But Malachi Starks, good pick. And we've got the Detroit Lions are next on the board.
This is a really good fit. And, we're talking about, teams that have vertical integration from top down. It's Baltimore Ravens have it. That's why they win about every year.
It seems like Philly and Baltimore are two that great Kansas City, Buffalo.
All right, Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions are picking number 28 now. They went 15-2 last year, number 1 in the NFC North. Fifth year for Dan Campbell as the head coach. Another team with a solid offense. They were first in points scored, second in total yards and in passing yards, sixth in rushing yards. The defense, while they were fifth versus the run, gave up the sixth fewest points. They also gave up the 31st most passing yards and were 20th in total yards allowed. So obviously the same kind of a situation with the Baltimore Ravens where they get out to a lead, teams have to pass on them. So now you've got this gigantic stat of, hey, you're shutting down the run, but you're really bad at the passing game. Had a lot of injuries on the defense last year for the Lions. And again, like a lot of these teams toward the end of the first round here, not a lot of signings. They've got their core team already in place. So with the Detroit Lions, they signed cornerback DJ Reed. He spent the last 3 years with the New York Jets. And they got some deeper depth pieces, but that's about it. The needs for these guys as well, you're looking at defensive line, edge, maybe offensive guard, which isn't there, wide receiver, which isn't there, cornerback, which is. Wouldn't be surprised if they went safety as well. But again, you've got Will Johnson on the board just sitting there, Michigan kid. The pick is in for Detroit. I would think that would be fantastic for Will Johnson, Michigan, play for the Detroit Lions. I think would be fantastic.
Tisha, what was it like watching your son's dreams realized? You have no idea. I mean, he's worked so hard. He's earned it every step of the way. Nothing has ever been given to him. He earned everything, and now he's getting to play with his favorite quarterback. It's a dream come true. Savannah, we saw that long hug with the commissioner. You see his passion. How would you describe Malachi to Ravens fans who may not know him? One-of-one, for sure. They're getting a good one, and he's going to bring all the energy he's got. We saw that on full display. Congratulations, you guys. Reese.
All right, the pick is in for the Detroit Lions. Let's see what direction they go in. Not a whole lot of options there. You're probably looking at defense again. It could be Mike Green. I would bet Will Johnson on this one, though.
28th pick overall, the Detroit Lions. You see Field Yates, best available atop that. Got not too far away from the line.
Jihad Campbell is still on the board as a linebacker. So you're looking at cornerback Will Johnson, Mike Green at the edge, or Jihad Campbell at linebacker. That should be right up Dan Campbell's alley right there.
There's an issue tying back to Will Johnson's knee surgery that happened before the 2023 season. It cost him the first 3 games of Michigan's championship year. This isn't the kind of injury that has him knocked off teams' boards. It's simply something that's going to loom in the long term. And teams have been reluctant to spend high-end draft capital.
Malachi Starks.
Fight them down the line. So Will Johnson's probably expected to go within the next 10 picks, but he has slid from a top 10 type talent to where they are now, where he is right now.
All right, Pete, so we'll watch and see what happens. Some of the things that people have talked about is not so much the immediate concern, it's about second contract. I mean, as Pete alluded to, right, it would be an issue. You got a lot of clearances here, Roger.
The Detroit Lions select Tyleek Williams, defensive tackle, Ohio State.
Well, there's a guy that we didn't quite mention yet, Tyleek Williams, and he did not quite make my first round either. But Tyleek Williams was somebody that was talked about early on, defensive tackle from Ohio State. Had a really good year last year. And something that the Lions desperately need up front to put pressure on quarterbacks at this point.
Did they get draft picks for the second team or no? No. Okay. Tyler Williams is headed to the line. There's so many entries on defense here going now. A little more depth on the youngsters from Ohio State Commanders on the clock. What are you doing, Anna?
Working on my data profile. Want to see? That's me.
Anna, how do you sleep at night?
On a mattress. I got a mattress firm. It's got cooling technology. So now I sleep.
Get matched at Mattress Firm? Sleep at night.
In this game, making the right move is hard. It's a challenge that feels like a mountain. As unpredictable as life itself. Unless you open the door to sell you home, then it's like pretty easy.
Ashton! If you make a big move, stop by moving out of my back.
All right, we've got, 4 picks left to go at this point. Next ones up are the Washington Commanders. Washington finished last year at 12-5 and number 2 in the NFC East. Dan Quinn is coming into his second year, and I'm sure that the Cowboys are really happy to have let him go after the 2023 season, be the head coach in the division rivals, who made the NFC Championship game along with other division rivals, Philadelphia Eagles. Their offense was 5th in points, 7th in total yards, and 3rd in rushing yards. And they were 17th in passing yards. Their defense was 3rd versus the pass, but they were 30th versus the rush. So a lot of teams were just running all over them. So I would expect, in this draft, you're looking at edge. I don't think there's any more defensive linemen that you could actually reach for at this point. Maybe you go after a safety. But they gave up 18th most points and a 13th most yards. So overall, not bad for a team to get to the NFC Championship with those kind of numbers. So in the offseason, they traded their 2025 third rounder along with and packaged it with a 2025 7th rounder and a 2026 4th rounder and a 2026 second rounder. They traded to Houston for left tackle Laramie Tunsil. They also received a 2025 4th rounder in that trade as well to get a good, actually one of the better left tackles in the NFL to protect their franchise quarterback. They also they sent a 2025 5th rounder to San Francisco for wide receiver Deebo Samuel. So trading a lot of draft picks away, a lot of equity going out to 2 different guys. In the meantime, they also signed wide receiver Michael Gallup, who spent the last 6 years in Dallas. So Dan Quinn, very familiar with him. They signed wide receiver KJ Osborne, who spent last year with New England. Defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, who spent last year with the Jets. Cornerback Jonathan Jones, who spent the last 9 years with New England. And cornerback Will Harris, who was with the New Orleans Saints last year. So they've made a lot of moves to their team this year, picked up a couple more pieces. But let's see where they're going to end up with this pick in the draft. I have in order safety, wide receiver, edge, cornerback. Will Johnson's still there. I wonder if what's happening with Will Johnson is the knee injury that happened in 2023. Maybe he lost a little bit of a step between 23 and 24. If that showed a little bit more in the combine when they were scouting him, and that's why there is such a fall there. But there's still another safety that they could pick up. Speaking about the Washington Commanders, you've got Nick Amanwari from South Carolina, who's still on the board.
Well, you sit around for 3 hours and you just hope that you maybe have 2 or 3, 4 names, and you just hope one of those guys is left by the time you get there. The way they're reacting, they must have had enough of this.
And the pick is in for the Commanders. Dan Quinn's got to be happy with his first year as a head coach of the Commanders. So they went offensive tackle, Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon, who was one of the only offensive players that I had left on my board for the first round. He goes 29. So Josh Connerly, veteran offensive lineman, 6'5", 310, 315 pounds, first team All-American in 2024, first team All-Big Ten 2024, won the Anthony Munoz Award in 2021. And so he's a bigger guy. Sometimes he loses his feet. Sometimes he can get pushed back, which is why he dropped a little bit further. But he is a very talented offensive tackle. And I'm guessing that with the signing of Laramie Tunsil that they gave all of those draft picks away for, he'll probably move over to right tackle, which would probably be a better start for him. He'll take the spot of Andrew Wiley, 30-year-old Andrew Wiley, who's been with the team for a couple of years, mediocre tackle at best, typically a little bit more of a guard than a tackle. But overall, it's another team that is very full with offensive linemen. They've got Tyler Biadish at center. He's only 27 years old. Nick Allegretti at left guard. So very, very good offensive line for the Washington Commanders. Now we've got the Buffalo Bills picking at number 30. They got about 5 minutes left on the clock here. But the Buffalo Bills finished the season 13-4 last year, number 1 in the AFC East. They've got Sean McDermott, who's been their head coach since 2017. On the offense, top 10 offense, obviously, they were second in passing, second in points, scored 10th in yards, 9th in both rushing and passing offense, so a very balanced offense. Defense, they were 11th in points allowed, and they were 17th in total yards given up. They were 24th in passing yards allowed. So I'm thinking defensive back here again. A lot of these teams, obviously they get out to a lead. They've got strong offenses. Defenses have to pass against them. In the offseason, they traded cornerback Khair Elam and a 2025 sixth rounder to Dallas for a 2025 fifth rounder and a 2026 seventh rounder. So not something that you would really typically see from a team that seems like it needs some defensive back help. But they also signed wide receiver Joshua Palmer, who spent the last 4 years with the Los Angeles Chargers. They signed defensive end Joey Bosa, who spent the last 9 years with the Chargers. And they also got cornerback Dane Jackson, who spent last year with Carolina, but was also with Buffalo from 2020 to 2023. So, again, I'm just looking at the Buffalo Bills here and thinking if they're happy with their offense, and what is on the board quite a bit still is defensive weapons. Mike Green is still on the board. That would be a good edge piece. You can match him up with Joey Bosa. That would be something right there. But the Bills pick is in. Now we're just waiting for them. Jihad Campbell would be a good pick yet if you're afraid of the knee injury from Will Johnson. I think a lot of people thought Jihad Campbell from Alabama would go somewhere around 19 to Tampa Bay. I had him in my couple of last drafts. It was 14, 19, 16, and 19. So I didn't think that he would be at number 30, not being selected yet. But the Bills do run a 4-3 defense. So a little less on the linebacker side of it, maybe a little bit more on the defensive back. Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin are their two safeties. They could definitely use Nick Amanwari.
The NFL is stepping up to have an even greater impact as a wish maker for Make-A-Wish. For the second time tonight, we have the opportunity to grant a wish for a deserving young man to announce the first pick for his favorite team. Tommy.
But 3.5 hours in, and we have 3 more picks to go: Buffalo, KC, and Philadelphia. And it's interesting because of the, potential, we're talking hypotheticals, knee injury with Will Johnson, if he lost a step, or if they think that is just going to be some kind of a career, dragging out. They think it's going to be with him for a long time, or if he needs more time to recover, the Eagles could get a very good cornerback at 32. Not that they need it. They got a couple of fantastic cornerbacks right now, but it could be a developmental piece. All right, so they went cornerback. Not the cornerback that I thought with Will Johnson, but they went Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky. So that's one of the first ones in a long time that's actually made sense to me. Maxwell Harrison.
His two roommates who aren't even football players called Death Was, but when you talk to Maxwell, man, look at that energy. You see his smile, he's so happy. Kid from Detroit, Greek cover corner. Made SEC interceptions as a junior. Had some injuries, but man, this guy, when he's on the field, he's a difference maker. Has a ton of confidence. I can't wait to watch him at the next level.
Funny, Maxwell Harrison shows up in his blue suit. It's almost Buffalo Bills blue. But he was a 2-time second-team All-SEC in 23 and 24. He's got a high IQ. He's very quick, fast twitch corner, confident in his athletic ability. Can read a quarterback. The only thing that, he'll have to build up a little bulk. He's 5'11", which is a good size, but 183. So the one thing that concerns me is his ability to play, his toughness. But he did set, he's fast. He set the single-game school record with 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns for Kentucky when they beat Vanderbilt. So overall, not a terrible pick. And now we've got pick number 31 is the Philadelphia Eagles, who apparently traded up 1 spot with the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Eagles are on the board now at number 31. Not sure what they were thinking, but the Philadelphia Eagles went 14-3 last year. Nick Sirianni, been their head coach since 2021. Offensively, they were second best in rushing with Saquon Barkley and 7th in scoring and 8th in total yards. They were 29th in passing yards. Defensively, they gave up the fewest passing yards, the fewest total yards, the 10th fewest rushing yards, and 2nd fewest points. So they were a defensive dynamo last year. I can't imagine that they're going to go after more defense in this. But in the offseason, they traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson to Houston for offensive guard Kenyon Green, and they traded Kenny Pickett to Cleveland for a 2025 fifth-rounder and quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who would seem to fit in well. He'd probably learn a lot from the the king of the tush push there, Jalen Hurts. They signed nobody of relevance other than that, except for depth pieces. Like I said, they've got a pretty solid team already in place on paper. The only release was Darius Slay. He ended up in Pittsburgh. So we'll see what they're going to do. I would think that Philly, I'm looking safety, maybe interior offensive line, edge, defensive line. Maybe they'll go after Mike Green from Marshall. Not really sure who they see on the board that is a must-have. Could be either Mike Green or Jahad Campbell would be my guess for the Eagles with pick 31 that they had to get in front of Kansas City to do. And figures that they're going to go to a commercial. That's great.
So no matter what you're looking for, save big on all your spring projects. Now through May 7th, shop spring deals under $20 at the Home Depot.
The beach. To Corona, she isn't just a place. She is an element. And with salt and spray, she shows us relentlessly into the present. That's what's inside every bottle of Corona. So no matter where your trip takes you, with just a sweet smile, the beach is always closer than you think. Corona, La Playa awaits.
Chipotle honey chicken brings a hint of pure honey and seared smoked peppers with fresh chicken hot off the grill. For Chipotle heat with a touch of sweet and a perfectly balanced sauce. Chipotle honey chicken takes heat and sweet to a whole new level.
So a lot of defense left on the board for round one. Wondering if Kansas City is going to trade that 32nd pick to a possible team looking for Shedeur, maybe pick up some more equity. Since the Giants took Jackson Dart. Or maybe New England. New Orleans is really the only team out there right now that I can think of that would need a quarterback at this point. Well, besides Pittsburgh. So those two teams, it's got to be one of those two. And I'm thinking if Shedeur falls to the Saints' next draft pick in the second round here, he's definitely going to the Saints. Making that assessment, if you're Pittsburgh, do you trade up to get him? Or are you playing a cat and mouse game still with Aaron Rodgers?
For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Dash Pass saves you money on DoorDash, so you can skip the trip to the grocery store and focus on what really needs saving. Your sanity. Save on grocery orders with Dash Pass by DoorDash. Your door to more savings.
Only getting isolated results? Big gains come from AI that works across all your data and applications.
If you are a Ravens fan out there, what are you thinking about the Malachi Starks pick? We're getting some mixed thoughts here on stacking the defense too much. Not putting enough into edge, but like I've said before, there are other individuals out there that you can get later on in the draft for an edge piece. I like Savion Jones from LSU. We could probably pick him up in the third or fourth round. Kemon Rucker from North Carolina. Pick him up in later rounds. I think he would be effective. Jordan Birch from Oregon. Get him in the next round or in the third round. And the Eagles pick.
2025 NFL Draft. The Philadelphia Eagles select Jihad Campbell, linebacker, Alabama.
Jihad Campbell. Figured it had to be one of those two. Jihad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. That defense is out of control. I did not have Jihad Campbell going any later than number 19. 19. Absolutely ridiculous. The only mock draft that I saw that had him going this late was Daniel Jeremiah. That is just crazy. Yeah, Jihad Campbell has a high motor. First team All SEC last year. 6'3", 235. Great arm length. A 4'5", 240. Big, fast. And if the shoulder injury is the issue of why he fell so much, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Again, we kind of talked about it with the cornerback situation. This is a situation where he doesn't need to be ready to play right away in that Eagles defense. But he's smart. He can find holes in the offensive line. Play off the edge. Beat tackles. He can get low, gets his pads low. Not a bad pick. Philly's done a bang-up job the last couple of years. Kansas City is the last one up. So Kansas City cheats. 15-2 last year. Andy Reid's been their head coach since 2013. Take a look at these numbers. So they gave up the fourth fewest points. Thank you, refs, for all those penalties holding other teams out of the end zone. They were 8th versus the run, 8th versus the pass, 9th in total yards given up. The offense was not great either. They were 17th in total yards. Okay, this is a team that made it to the Super Bowl. 17th in total yards, 14th in passing yards, 22nd in rushing, and in scoring, and the 15th. And they had the 15th most points scored in the league. So it makes you wonder how a team that is so below average on offense and so subpar on defense, how did they make it to the Super Bowl? Isn't that crazy? Makes you wonder. They traded offensive lineman Joe Thuney to Chicago for a 2026 fourth-round pick. They signed offensive lineman Jalen Moore, left tackle, I'm going to assume, to play left tackle. He spent the last 4 years with the San Francisco 49ers. They signed defensive tackle Jerry Tillery, who was in Minnesota last year, and they also signed cornerback Christian Fulton, who was with the Chargers last year. Draft needs, defensive line, offensive line, and a couple of new referees since some of them got demoted to college ranks. But I digress. The pick is in. Best bet here. Best player on the board that I got is cornerback Will Johnson. Still sitting there. Outside of that, you could go edge. Donovan Ezuraku. That's a mouthful. I think they're probably going to go tackle, though. They'll keep it on the offense. Josh Simmons is still available. They could go safety with Nick Amonwari. That's really about it. Those are really the only three people that I would put any stock into at this point. Those are the three best on my board. So cornerback, which they could use. Edge. Oh, Mike Green. Mike Green is still there. A couple of different edge. Cornerback, 2 edge, or an offensive tackle. Final pick. Here it comes. Josh Simmons. There you go. Figured they might pick him. Offensive tackle. They need some more offensive linemen that, if they can't get the refs, I guess they need guys to not hold all the time and jump early. So Josh Simmons at number 32. And that is your NFL Draft 2025 first round. Hope everybody was happy with that. And if you have any further comments, questions, anything like that, feel free to follow me anywhere, really. I'm on YouTube. I'm on X. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. So I'm pretty much everywhere. Downfield Read. That's where you can find it. Please do follow me. Share all this fun stuff. It was a pleasure speaking with everyone, answering questions, all that kind of stuff, the banter back and forth. Appreciate it. Everyone have a great night. This is the only round that we are doing this for, that I'm doing this for. Hope the rest of the draft goes well for you. Thank you.